Hey everyone, I'm Travis Wright, and you're listening to I'm a Fan Of, your show for music, comedy, and more. As always, if you're a musician, a comedian, or just someone that does something interesting, please reach out to me on Instagram at TravisCanListen. You can find me on Facebook at I'm a Fan Of, or you can reach out to me through the website at I'mAFanOfPod.com. Of course, if you just enjoy the show, please follow me there as well and like and subscribe to the podcast. This episode, we've got a hilarious stand-up comic. We have Tyler Elliott. He is actually from Tyler, Texas, believe it or not. No real relation there. He's actually originally from Oklahoma, but he lives out in Tyler. He does a little bit of comedy out there, but he performs all over DFW as well as other places out of state. Very, very funny comic. I've watched him for several years now, and he's a comedy veteran. He's been doing it about 12 years. I highly, highly recommend his show. He has got a very quirky, unique style that is different from a lot of the comics you'll see on shows when you go to him, and he's very unique in a way that's going to be refreshing if you happen to be on one of his shows. So please go check out one of his shows. But yeah, we talk about comedy, of course. We talk about running marathons. He's finished 8 marathons, and I've finished 4, so I want to keep doing more. And he was there messaging me whenever I was doing my first one, which was really cool. I hadn't even met the guy yet, and he was giving me tips and encouragement, which was really fun. And then, we just talk a little bit about life, having kids and all these sorts of things that come up. Just interesting guy. We talked, for about 2 hours, and I could have talked for 2 hours more, but he had to get out of here, do a show down at Dallas Comedy Club. So anyway, yeah, let's stop talking about it. Let's just go ahead and get into the interview. This is Tyler Elliott. The I'm a Fan Of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
Hello.
All right, Tyler Elliott. What's up, man?
Oh, hey.
I like how you're checking out yourself in the camera there.
It's like a Zoom. It's like a Zoom cause.
Yeah. Dude, thanks for making the drive out. Tyler from Tyler.
Thanks for having me. No, it's good. I'm glad I'm finally here.
Yeah. You are probably one of my favorite comics locally because of how strange your stage presence is. Do you get that a lot?
Thank you. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I guess I talk like I do now, so I just talk like I do.
Yeah, I mean, you laid on a little thicker on the shows.
Yeah, you space it out, and you don't. Mm-hmm. I don't really smile or laugh on stage, and people are like, "How are you doing that? How do you?" I was like, "Well, I've heard all this stuff before. Yeah. I know what's coming, so I don't really. It doesn't surprise me."
Yeah, it is. One of the shows that I think will always stand out is when someone asked you to host at Plano House of Comedy, and you were like, "Yeah, the host is usually somebody who comes out here and gets you like hyped up and super energetic." But you got me.
Yeah, I was. Well, when I first started, I started hosting at Hyenas. Can we mention people's?
Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah.
Hyenas, and you're supposed to you're supposed to get them like, hey, you're supposed to, dance, clown, dance,
mm-hmm.
get them all hyped up. You're really not. You really don't have to be super fun. You just have to not walk people. Like they got to be able to leave the room and trust that you're not gonna it's gonna fall apart. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of harmless. You're supposed to be. But I would talk like, "Hey, how y'all doing?" And then when I first started, I wanted to be Anthony Jeselnik and Stephen Wright. I wanted to be dark and dry and that's what I do. But it doesn't work for a host because he's like, "Hey, you gotta get better so we can move you up," or you got to do something. So I started acknowledging it, "Hey, how y'all doing? Have you guys been to the show?" And people are like, "Yeah." It's like, well, they get a host. It's super. Mm-hmm. It's gonna get you guys all pumped up. And that guy was, got sick, so they're gonna let me do it. Or I'm the janitor. I'll help you.
Yeah. Was that tough though at the start? That at the very beginning of y'all's comedy journey, right? That's usually a first step is hosting, before you do anything else. And like you said, they want you to be energetic, and we're here to make people have fun. And, it's hard to do that with your style. And what do they usually give you when you host? 5-10 minutes?
They give you 10 to 15. But yeah, you can't Were
they telling you you can't do that? You got to more pep or
you got to pep it up. But then if you're two different people within 15 minutes, they're I don't believe anything you say. Mm-hmm. It helps. Yeah, there's I don't buy it. Which one are you? It becomes a distraction if you try to be, because the jokes don't work
right
in high energy. The jokes work the way that maybe, who knows? Maybe they work better if somebody else did them. But the way that I do them, like that's the way the jokes work. So I can't be like, "Hey, how y'all doing?" And then, anyways, my dad's dead, and they're like, "What? Why did you do that? We trusted you. We trusted you to be."
So how did you navigate that then when they're telling you to
I
bring
just
in more
acknowledge
pep?
it.
And,
You just acknowledge it. Like,
no,
hey,
I mean with like the club bookers and stuff.
oh, if you acknowledge it, they're like, okay, because the crowd laugh. It's like it's a laugh.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, he went up there and he started talking, and they're laughing. So it's fine.
Yeah,
like, I think that
I always wondered because I know
on it.
I know they get more of a like they're more structured, they're more rigid. So I
It's
always wonder
most rules.
Yeah, and so I always wonder how
Yeah.
comics who have an approach that's a little more outside of the box, if they struggle more to get stage time at those types of clubs. But
yeah, it was. I didn't start hosting until like year 3, but I've always lived in Tyler. I've always lived in East Texas, so I was like, I would come over to open mic like once every 2 months or 3 months.
yeah. What's the drive from there right now?
90 minutes,
90
hour
minutes,
and 45, something like 2 hours.
That's
something.
tough,
Fort
man.
Worth is like 2 hours and something.
Yeah.
I was there Thursday and then drove back, and then I drove last night to Dallas Comedy Club, and tonight Dallas Comedy Club.
Why don't you just move out here, man?
I can't. I got a really good day job, and I have a daughter, and those things are more important than.
Did you live out there
comedy.
when you started? You said you were doing
I've
open
lived out
mics.
there the entire time.
So how did you find out that the open mics were out here to begin with? Like what started comedy where you're like, I think I'm going to do that?
Do you know Brandon Davidson?
Mhm.
Friend
Yeah.
of the pod,
Yeah.
friend of the podcast. Shout out to Brandon. We started we worked together, and our wives were like, go do an open mic because this is annoying.
Like y'all were just
go
shooting the shit with each other.
Like doing
and,
we loved comedy, and then he's like, well, why don't you guys do an open mic? And we drove up here like hyenas, like Wednesday night. Came up and watched we didn't know that you don't have to stay in the room and watch 80 people with like mental illness, like schizophrenic people just yell. We watched the whole thing, and then the guy we rode with, he had to leave, so we didn't even go up. And then the next week, we're like, we're going up again, and we went. And we're like at the end of the list. It was like 2 a.m. There's like 6 people in there, and I did my jokes, and it was awful. And I was like, I want to do that again. But it was like I didn't have. Another thing is I have to talk like this because I had severe stage fright. So to like try to have stage fright, and then on top of it, like add this, like, ooh, this. It would be too much.
Like you were trying, but you weren't doing that. Did you try that the very first open mic you did?
No, I've always talked like this.
So you've always knew like that's just not.
I
gonna
knew
work for me.
that if I talk like this and don't smile or smile every once in a while, like it works. Like it works. Like. Yeah, and it works perfectly now that I'm a feature and sometimes headliner at some places. When you have more time, it's like it's perfect.
Yeah,
because as a feature now, like the host does all the dancing, and then they bring me up, and the first thing I say is like, "Hey." After people clap, I go, "Hey." That's what the first thing I say every time, and it gets a laugh, but it also tells people it's like, "Hey, this is where we're gonna be for like."
Yeah, it's different now.
Hey, it's going to be this. It's going to be different, and it works so much better if the person before me is like just outrageously like so much.
Yeah, so you can totally flip it the other way.
Yeah, so you're just like So then, and some people accuse it. Not accuse it. Just confuse it for like, oh, he's dirty. Like dark is dirty. They're like he dirty, and he's like, well, he didn't really even cuss or say anything.
I see what you mean. Just because of the cadence.
Yeah, weird and like.
Yeah, I never thought about it, that way. But I see what you mean now, because you do associate like Jesselnicks and people like that who are
dirty.
But they take their time as well when they need to. Yeah,
and he's not necessarily dirty. He's got some things, but you wouldn't be like, oh, that's a filthy comedian.
Yeah, I don't think he swears a lot. It's just like you said, his punches are so shocking.
Yeah,
that you think that it disturbs you sometimes, but it's not dirty.
That's who I wanted to be, and then I would write jokes like that. Then people would groan, and I would back off, and I was like, you can't do that. You have to like, even if they're grown, you have to like stand there and be like, yeah, I said that. Like you have to just stand there and like, yeah, I said it. Let's move on. Like.
Yeah,
you're gonna feel bad for laughing at it if it's clever. Like they'll laugh at it, but they'll feel bad. They'll shake. One of those best laughs is like when they're like shaking their head but laughing.
Yeah,
like they don't want to, but they have to because the joke is okay. They like it. I mean, it works. So
yeah, it's you were talking about the open mic, watching the whole thing. I had that same experience because I didn't really understand what an open mic was until, I don't know, probably like 2017 or 2018. I'd always gone to comedy shows, but I have a music background, so I knew what an open mic was for music, but it's very different than comedy.
Oh, it's very, music open mic, it's built to ignore.
Yeah. And music is just inherently more, people are more receptive to music, like if you're at a bar or something, right?
Yeah.
And so even if it's bad, you can kind of tune it out pretty easy, and but after I'd listened to the Kill Tony podcast for a little bit, I got really curious how like a real open mic went, not a Kill Tony episode. And I live here in East Dallas. I'm like less than a mile from Hyenas. So I saw their little marquee. It said Wednesday was the open mic one night. And I was like, I got to go to that, And it was the same thing. I thought like it would be rude to just leave, So I watched the whole thing. And I went once, but I mean, I don't know, man. I found it fascinating. Like, yeah, it's rough, but I don't know. It was like that's I think when the veil was pulled back to just how much work goes into getting like a real laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How like, all those laughs I heard on stage on a weekend spot, those like it almost cheapened it, not knowing how much work went into it. Now that I knew it was that hard, I was like, oh my God, that's incredible that somebody can actually do this for an hour with no drop, and they just perform an incredible set. And then it was like, the respect of comedy in the show. It's like the show got enhanced for me now. Now when I went to weekend shows to go, oh my God, like how did they get that good? Because you saw just person after person who's just struggling to get just one good laugh in a room full of weirdos like me who stumbled in there and other comics who don't really care to listen to them, But it was a really eye-opening experience. I'm surprised that after you saw that, you thought, I'm going to come back and perform.
Oh, I just always loved comedy, and I was like, I could already like I still have the paper printed out from my first open mic. I still have it.
Oh, the list, like the blocks
like
and everything.
12 years ago. It says, "Hi, my name's." I even have my name on it in case I forgot. But like some of those jokes I do now, and I've been doing it for 12 years, and then you like get in your head, it's like you can't write, but they're so much better now. Like when you first start, it's just an idea. Like sometimes I go back and look at old notebooks, and I'll be like. And I'll look at it like, oh, somebody else wrote this, which somebody did. It was me when I didn't know what I was doing. Now I can like punch that up or give it tags or whatever.
When just your life was so different 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Just like you literally aren't the same person anymore.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, the open mics are, if people knew like how much hoops, like even to get booked, like email people back and forth and like, confirm stuff and people put in good words for you and then like just so much hoops to just have that show. And then open mics, I think I was listening to Gary Goldman on a pod, Gary Goldman, amazing joke writer. He was like on Comedy Bang Bang the other day, which is more like an improv, but they bring in like a real guest the first half, and then they bring in like characters. And he was talking about open mics. Like open mics is one of the only things that you practice in the worst conditions possible. Like music and everything else, you practice, but open mics, you just have the most hostile situation. Like you have to do it in front of people.
Yeah.
And then you think about when I was growing up, I would like record Comedy Central Presents on VHS. Yeah. I'm 42, so in 98 or whatever they started.
But that was like the height of Comedy Central.
Yeah, it was like Zach Galifianakis and Gaffigan and Louis C.K. and Tig Notaro, like all these people that still do it, and people I've worked with, which is it's insane that you get to meet some of them or work with them.
Yeah.
But I recorded it, and I was like, oh, I love comedy. I lived in from Oklahoma. I was like, oh, these 6 people are 7 people, and of course Jeff Foxworthy. Like everyone was like, of course, the blue collar. But there's like these 11 people that do stand up, and no one else does it. Mm-hmm. So you're like, I can't. They live in L.A. and New York, and that's the only people that do comedy. And then you get into it, you're like, oh no, anybody can try this. Out of anything hobby, I'm gonna go up there. And then you don't need to be prepared at all. You'll see that in open mic. So like, what else happened today?
We've had very similar experiences with comedy because I was saying the same thing to somebody else that when I first started going. The first club I was going to was Hyenas Dallas, just to watch shows,
That's where I went to first.
Yeah, and I assumed that everyone on that show was like flown in from somewhere else. And it was like, it's a really ignorant thought now, but for some reason back then, I didn't think there were comics even in this town, right?
Oh.
I thought like, oh, the comedy club, like these are big famous people that come through.
Helicopter them in,
exactly.
on the roof or whatever.
I thought everybody was like that. And then when I heard somebody telling like local material, it was a couple shows in, the host or whoever was talking about something here locally, and I was like, oh, they work here. That's weird. Like it still didn't dawn on me.
Yeah, they have a job. Yeah, they go to the open mic just like you do.
Yeah, and then you realized like, oh, and so when I went to that very first open mic and I saw that there were blocks and that this thing was going on forever, and it was probably like what, 70 people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the first of the year. It's a New Year's resolution thing.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
And then it's like the gym, and then it starts, people just kind of fall off.
See, I've been doing this podcast since 2019.
Yeah.
So if I try to keep it in line with like how it would be if you were a performer. So I feel like now I'm like somebody who's just barely hosting in the comedy world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in terms of the knowledge I have about kind of how things function and work.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fascinating to see, like when my mind was just blown that there's that many people doing it.
Yeah, it's anybody can. Yeah.
And so now since 2019, it's like now I've seen a couple cycles of like you said, the people saying like, oh, it's a New Year's resolution or something. They're coming in and then they're there for about a year and a half or whatever, and then they kind of fall off and you never see them.
They become they get a relationship, become happy or whatever, and they like, I don't know what else doing. Let's go. I'd rather do this. I'd rather go on dates instead of being here. Like,
but then on the flip side, you see some of them that they're dialing it in and they're getting funny. And
it takes a while.
It's exciting. Yeah, like I've been in there now long enough, watching it as much as I have, kind of more intensely for this podcast, to where you've seen people progress, and you're like, oh, that was the thing that was horrible that I saw like 2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah, like the first jokes on my paper, they're not
exactly.
Good. And
yeah,
you're like, oh, it's like a polished thing now.
Yeah, because like that was the other thing. I didn't realize people would tell the same material for a while.
Oh.
I was thinking that every time you went on stage, it was like new stuff every day, like even a professional, like if Seinfeld went on stage, he never did the same joke twice. Like it was very naive, but, and so, once I learned people are like, no, they're working on this, they're massaging it.
You have to tell it like 1,200. When you hate it, it's when it's like ready for, and then you have to, because you have to have the illusion like, oh, I just thought of this. What about this? And you're like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, it's a weird little world y'all are in. How many clubs have you now laid on your back for that one bit that you do, the McDonald's bit?
Every single one of them. Yeah.
Laying down on a dirty comedy stage.
I didn't do it last night. Sometimes I don't do it. I've been trying to do a different closer, talking about my daughter. But yeah. But then halfway through a show, if they're not like, it's not going like I think, I'm in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna lay on the I'm not gonna. It's already going how I don't like. I'm not gonna lay and pretend to cry and stuff. Yeah, I did it at Fort Worth.
We're like, obviously, we're not gonna get into the bit here, but I just love that people who don't know you that are watching or listening, all they know about the bit is that you lay on the floor and cry.
Yeah, well, everyone's just watching.
It is that awkward in person.
Yeah,
and that's like it's such a fun line you toe of being uncomfortable and funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You hold it. Hold.
So much fun.
Hold. Yeah, you got to learn how to like hold it. Now the thing I do is like the new picture online is me facing the wall.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've seen this one.
Which is like, it's a joke about, I worked at a elementary school and I was using the urinal and they came up behind, which they really did. They came up behind me and circled me and started singing happy birthday to me while I was like peeing. So like, I try to like, almost bend in half to push to hide in the urinal. So that's so like, but I'll hold that forever.
You're so tall that that's got to be a funny image on stage.
Yeah, I'm tall, drink water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the McDonald's thing is like, that's the only time I ever yell or raise my voice. So it's just like, have a cheeseburger, motherfucker, and then yelling on the, I don't know if we can cuss, but like, and then laying on the floor crying. People are like, what is this? What's going on?
What with your style, what's like your favorite size of stage or size of venue? Like, what do you feel like works best for you?
It doesn't matter the size of the stage because I just stand in one spot awkwardly. So it doesn't matter. It could be like a milk box or a milk crate, whatever. I could just stand there. I don't know. Outside during the day is the worst, but that's everybody.
What I'm saying, what do you like the most for your material? Where does it always work the best? Like,
small, like low ceilings, comedy club. Fort Worth Hyenas is a good example. DC, all the venues here are great for comedy.
Yeah.
Even if it's like bar shows are a little weird, but if they're there, if they know it's comedy, that's another thing. It's like,
because I even saw you. I think I saw you do that bit at the Louisville Theater.
Yeah,
on one of Brandon Davidson's shows. Yes, a couple years ago.
Yeah, dude. And I have a cool picture of like 300 people like watching me cry. So,
well, that's what I was wondering because I've watched you at several venues now, and I can't decide if your material works better in front of like 50 people or like 500 people.
It's probably 50 people, but I'm also like weird, so I'm not for everybody. So the more people, the more percentage of people are into it.
That's a good point.
Like kickstart like laughs or applause or something.
Yeah, they can rope other people into the basically letting the other people know like it's okay.
They're like, this is gonna be okay.
That Louisville venue, is he still? Brandon Davidson's kind of putting those on, right?
Yeah,
is he still doing that?
Yeah, okay. I think they're doing them. That lady's like gung ho. I think she wants more than what he wants to put. Like she wants it more often.
More. Oh, okay.
I think it's success. Yeah, it's a success. Great. Yeah.
Well,
it's a good problem.
Does he not want to do that, or
no? He does. It's just a matter of like booking people. Yeah. That's another thing too. Booking shows is like a nightmare.
But that venue was great though because, like you said, we've got lots of great venues here in Dallas. But people in Louisville, they don't want to drive to Dallas to watch a comedy show.
No, they're into it. Yeah.
And so I didn't know what to expect when I went to watch that in terms of crowd. But it was like a beautiful theater. And then the show that I went to, I don't know that it was sold out because it holds a lot. It's a big theater, but it was at least...
The floor was full.
I was going to say, it was at least 80% full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a couple
hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was really interesting is, like Louisville, it's like closer to those smaller farm towns.
Yeah.
So you got people in there that probably never go to comedy shows. And I was really curious how the reaction was going to be of all these people who probably don't go to these very often. Like if they love it, if they hate it.
Yeah.
And so half the fun of that show for me was like just watching the crowd.
I like watching people watch.
Yeah.
If it's somebody I know, I'm like watching them watch.
That was a good show for it because, I mean, it was literally like people with, like overalls and John Deere hats.
Yeah, I think there was children. There's like young people.
It was a very diverse, interesting crowd.
Yeah.
And then, you just don't know, like, are they going to like it? Are they going to be offended? Is it going to be strange? And most of them, I mean, everybody was on board that I saw. I didn't see anybody who disliked it. And
no, they're pretty good.
It gets you, for me anyway, like it gets me more excited about going to shows again when you don't see the same, group watching shows all the time. It's like DCC, Hyenas, the Improv, they're all great, but it's very similar crowds going to those places,
Yeah.
And I always love seeing non-comedy goers, like their reactions. Like you just saw someone's first show.
Yeah, they're like, I've never been to a comedy show. And you're like, okay, cool.
And you see them in the lobby afterwards,
and
they're psyched
they always
about
come
it.
up and like shake your hand and stuff. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear they want to do more shows out there.
Yeah, one we did there was like in the off room. There was like
I've never seen that.
But it was like it's kind of in the round.
Oh, that's cool.
And that one was it was like me and Fonzo and Emily Griefer and
it's a good lineup.
Yeah, it was so good and Brandon was on it, but it was just all older people with like Hawaiian. I was like, man, this looks like a Cracker Barrel on here. I said that to them.
That's
just
the best.
Acknowledge it.
That's the best description. It is the Cracker Barrel crowd going to a comedy show.
It's them waiting. It's Sunday. It's a Sunday afternoon Cracker Barrel waiting for a table. That's the crowd. And then comedy clubs are usually like Fort Worth is stockyards, like really kind of wealthy, middle-aged people, mid-30s, got babysitters and or their kids are old enough to.
And I didn't realize you guys have all kind of been educating me that like the Fort Worth room is apparently just a great room to perform in. Everyone has told me that the audiences there are just like if you can't get a laugh there, something's going on.
Yeah, I've seen it, and you're like, man.
I've only been to maybe 2, maybe 3 shows to see someone not get a single laugh on like a real show, you know, a weekend,
Yeah.
you know, a feature went up there and just not a single laugh. And you're like, oh, even as an audience member, you're rooting for them. You're like, I want this to work. And it just,
they want
just
to.
doesn't happen,
Yeah.
you know? But you were talking about performing in the round. I've wondered if we could open up a club, because most of the times when people perform in the round, it's like big venues. You know, it's a stadium. It's somebody like Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan doing big in the round shows, or Dane Cook, I think, was probably the first to like kick that off.
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, but I always wondered if you had a club like the size of, you know, Fort Worth Hyenas or something, you know,
and kind of had
could you have a small in the round stage in a club setting and make it fun still, or would it just be too weird? You know.
I think you can. I think I've seen videos of UCB like that. One of the UCBs,
okay.
kind of like where the crowd is even with the stage. There's kind of like no stage. Yeah,
so it's almost like they're standing on the floor and then everybody's seated around.
Everyone's kind of seated around in the round.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So that one was sort of like that.
That's like the old school, like the Roman theater type thing.
Yeah, which is weird. Yeah, because there's people to the left and right. Well, there's always. But
was it weird when you performed in the round?
Nah, I don't get. I'm like, let's do it. I don't get nervous anymore. I'm just like, let's just do it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that would add, because I hate the like stadiums when people perform in the round.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it, you know, this year. I was like, maybe I've always hated in the round because it's in these big stadiums.
It would work. It works in like black box theaters, like those little boxes. Because the comedy is good in a box. Because like the ceiling's low and the laughs are like they like vibrate. They dribble through the whole room.
Well, and I was thinking too, like
going off.
If you're an audience member and you're circled around that stage and you're looking at other audience members,
you
might laugh easier when you see these people laughing.
Yeah.
You know, like it might get a little more rowdy just from
it would hit harder if like last night. If somebody's like, if I can see them up front losing, it's just like a woman losing it, laughing. I'll just stare them down because I don't laugh, and then it makes everyone watches her, and it becomes. But in the round that would hit like really hard. That would hit hard.
Yeah.
Like last
because they're not sitting behind her; they're looking right at her.
No, they're looking right at her, and then if something happens, everyone can hear it, like or know what's happening.
See,
like heckling or whatever.
I've wondered. I know they do improv at DCC, and so that's why their stages are made the way they are.
Yeah,
you know, their stages
enough
are
room for 20 people.
Yeah, like the main stage is very wide.
Yeah,
which is not great for stand up, but they do a lot of improv there, so that makes
it's
the best of both worlds. You know, but I've wondered in their second small room if that would be like a perfect place to try that. Like if you just had a little, 8-foot in diameter circle that they performed on, because that room's already so small. You know, you might be able to put a few more seats in there without it feeling empty. You know, but I need money to open up my own place and try it.
I need money too. Yeah, I'd love to have some money.
Dude, speaking of venues and stuff, I am dying to drive out to Tyler to watch one of those shows at that venue.
At the Rose City?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it looks so interesting online because I know it started off like, man, it might have been somebody like Ralph Barbosa telling me that like back in the day that was like a really humble venue, like only a few years ago, right?
Oh, it was like a
cell phone repair shop,
and
right?
It was like a little room, like a corridor, and then the stage was like over the side, and it was like maybe
and he was telling me the guy was like
chairs.
ordering pizzas and selling them by the slice and stuff. Yeah,
and the shows were insane because the guy would be like the guy that had it before. He's all right. Who else wants to go up? And it was like the show. It was like the weekend show, and people in the audience were like, "I'll go." And then they would go up.
No
and do
way.
It. Yeah.
Oh, that's
There'd be like a woman be like, "I told my husband." And it was weird, but it was good.
That's when you learn that those people. I grew up in a small town because I think Tyler's fairly large now, right? Like it's not a small town.
Yeah, it's
and
over 100,000, something like that.
So
pretty big.
The area I grew up was around like Nevada and Farmersville. Are you familiar with those areas? So real small town, and you realize like those people are funny, like just naturally funny, like the people that you're shooting the shit with and jobs and stuff. So I could see people just hopping up there on a Saturday thinking, "Oh, I got this. I'm funny." Oh,
the funniest they're the funny one at work.
But that venue looks like it's really nice now.
Yeah, they changed even the seating just recently, where it's like so much seating. And the open mic, I live like 2 minutes from there. I go every Monday to the open mic, and it's like packed. And there's like 16 or 17 people that go up and do comedy.
Now, are those people from Tyler? Or like surrounding area?
Surrounding area. And then some of them are kind of there's a handful of newer people that are like good. Like they're probably a little bit of, they do like shows there.
Are any of them getting out this way yet, or is that like their club? And they kind of just go?
Jason, the guy that books it, he did the DCC show last night. I did the bigger room, and he was in the, like a showcase thing, like comedians to watch out for.
Okay,
like in a good
way.
I think that's not a.
Is that Emily Griefer's show?
I think
Who to See at DCC?
Who to See or something like that. Yeah. It was like Texas, Dallas Finest, something. Just whatever the name is.
Yeah.
And he was on that, and he's
an operator and a comic. Like he's running the club and he wants to
he
be a comic
books
too.
And
that's exciting. Well, I mean, I feel like Texas is gearing up. I know Austin's having like a big moment, and I think that's super cool. But I think just Texas, the state as a whole, is gearing up to be this incredible comedy hub. You know, because you have Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, that have these already very well, San Antonio, that have these very well established scenes. But now you're getting these areas like, you know, McKinney. Now Backdoor Comedy Club is in Richardson, and then you're talking about a club out in Tyler where it's like
those guys go over there. Well, like, all the Dallas people go.
But think how many funny people are in these small towns.
Yeah.
That aren't going to drive an hour and a half like you did for an open mic.
They won't.
And so they'll never be performers, right? But if you can start opening up these small little satellite clubs out here, it's like we might have a whole boom of just really funny people.
It's like the list is like 16, 17, 18 people going up in Tyler.
And it's only like I know the reason I noticed that club's getting nicer is because the footage I see online, it's like they have like a really nice stage. And it's like it was like, oh, they're
bringing people in from Houston and San Antonio. And
so it made me realize, you know, like, that's the tip of the iceberg. Like, there's probably only 17 people right now because it's still a fairly new club. Yeah. So in a couple more years, it's going to be 30, 40, 50
When
people.
I started, it was me and Brandon doing stand-up. There's an improv.
Is he from out that way as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he's originally from Arkansas, and I'm from Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
But we've worked together, and we still work together, our day job. But, it was just us doing stand-up. And there's an improv group, Card 53. They still do some things, but like, it was just us, and then we would put open mics on sometimes there, and there's a handful of those new guys are good, guys and girls are good. Mm-hmm. I would vouch for them to. Well, and I want that to a show here in Dallas. So
and as somebody who watches it, I get excited when. I mean, like I'll watch anybody from here in Dallas, Fort Worth. Like I'm not saying. Like, I don't want to watch anyone from here again, but I get excited when there's somebody from outside of here that you've never heard of before, right?
Yeah.
Because it's usually something that's a little fresh, like it shakes it up just
it's
enough.
Different, like a little accent.
And they're not entrenched in like the comedy scene politics around here. You know, it's like you need that little shot of an outsider every now and then just to keep it different.
Yeah, there's like But when you first watch open mics, you can tell who they've watched. You're like, oh, there's Mitch Hedberg, there's Bill Hicks, there's Bill Burr.
See, I'm not that observant yet. Like I know everyone models off of somebody at the beginning, but I just don't have like my comedy ear tuned like that yet, where I can go, oh, I bet they love this person. You know?
Yeah, I stopped watching. Stand up. I like it. I'll watch stuff, but I can't. I don't really watch it because because I'll get bummed out if they have like a joke. Sort of like, man, they're famous, so you're like, oh, I can't do that. Jokes. Somebody will accuse me.
So even the big famous people you don't want to watch.
I'll watch some. Yeah. I love. There's people I know. I've done shows with Dusty Slay a bunch.
Oh yeah.
So I watch him. Like I know him, so I would watch his stuff.
Well, talking about your earlier comment about how, like one of your strengths ends up being that you're very different than like if the opener's wild and energetic, but Dusty Slay starts getting into a similar lane with you of strange and awkward and weird. So do you feel like that show's harder or easier? Like
that one's easier because not easier. His crowds are like so good. Like like a couple months ago, I featured for him at the Addison Improv, like Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, and they were sold out. So that's easy, and they're already like geared up. And then
I guess that's a good point. They're used to something.
Yeah, and
different.
then both of us are like guys with Southern accents. Like I get a lot of hey, you sound like Billy Wayne Davis, I think his name is. And then like somebody's like, you got a little bit of a Bargatze thing going with a little Southern, but like dry, no emotion.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, I guess
he eyes, like Southern. And I was like, oh yeah, but Dusty, yeah, me and him both, like, he's from Alabama and I'm from Oklahoma. Like we both have like an accent and like and then he wants the people before him to be like super clean.
Okay.
Which, yeah, like so I like to watch if it's a showcase or there's people before me. I watch the whole show. I sit there and watch the whole show because if something weird happens, you can call it back, and that's like like a callback. Callbacks are like a kind of like a cheat code because people are like, "Oh, I get it. I remember it." It makes the crowd feel smart because they put something together. But if it's like a callback to something that happened in the room that they were there for the first time, it's like it's so good. So like I try to watch the show, to see if something weird happens or the people before you could be dirty and people are into that. And then if you go up and you're not dirty, they get disappointed.
Really?
If they're into it. Yeah, they're kind of like, you didn't really talk about, we don't even know if you have a dick or not. Like you didn't even mention that you have a...
You didn't talk about your dick at all.
Yeah. It's like, do you even like vagina? You didn't even mention...
Dude, it's a really interesting phenomenon that almost every male comic that I've seen anyway, like when you go to open mics, it seems like they all drift into the dick talk territory, right?
Well, female do it. Everyone does it. They're like, "Hey, I got bathing suit area, and there's stuff in it. Hey, y'all, remember I got a vagina? Hey, y'all, I got a penis."
It's so strange though that that's a go-to for so many people. I guess they think it's a shocking topic, so it's funny and it's like,
shocking because
it's something that we don't talk about at work, so I'll talk about it here.
Yeah,
or something.
You can't talk about.
But it's so crazy how so many people, when they start, will say like, "Oh, I'll do a joke about that."
Everybody does,
and they don't connect the dots that like everyone does a joke about that. So it's not that. It's rarely that funny,
Like I'll even watch like I've even watching so intently like, why is everybody asking how y'all doing?
Yeah.
So an open mic. This is the 50th person going, how y'all doing tonight? You just wasted 30 seconds of your 2 minutes. Yeah. And they're like, right, woo. And they're like, they just told you it's almost like, and people do it in contests. People do it in comedy contests where like there's like 16 people on it and you have 3 minutes to try to advance, to try to win like money or get bookings. How y'all doing? Like that did you write that in your thing? Are you going to say how y'all doing funnier than someone else? And
like they opened a notebook and we're like, how y'all doing?
Well, it's almost like they're like, oh, the 100th comic that says this gets a $10 Chick-fil-A gift card or something.
Yeah.
Like, no, just why are you doing that? I don't really care.
It's got to be a nervous tick.
Yeah,
because
that's all it is.
So like, I work in healthcare for a living, and I've worked in the ER a lot, and one of the funny things that happens when you have a student with you is that's what they do. So you'll go into somebody's room in the emergency room.
How are we doing?
Yeah, they're like, hey, how are you doing? And, they're just looking at them like, terrible. I'm in the emergency room.
I just got my leg cut off.
Yeah. And you have to explain to a lot of the students, like, just take that out of your whole vocabulary. Like, it's a bad day. Nobody wanted to be here. So I think it's like a nervous coping mechanism,
Oh, that's all it is. And ums and hot. And then you, record yourself when you do comedy because you don't know. I would.
What was your worst habit when you were?
Oh, whipping the mic cord. People are like, Brandon.
Oh, you're just constantly playing with it?
I was just like moving it, and excuse me. And Brandon or somebody else like, hey, you're whipping the mic cord. I was like, no, I just moved it. Like, record yourself. I fucking was like, it looked like Indiana Jones. It looked like I was, there was lions up there. I was taming. Like, I was just like, whoosh. I was like, Jesus Christ. So I moved that, or people were like, move the mic stand. Like, even if the mic stand is this, and I'm this, but there's a camera right here. So if I keep the mic stand here, I mean, I'm still hidden. People are like, why is that still there? Why if you have stuff on your shirt, like funny sayings, all those $5 Walmart shirts that say like fart loading or like sarcasms, my love. Like, people are reading that. They're like, they're not even watching you. Like, why does he have that on? So people are just like, everyone's looking at you. So like, why does he move the mic stand? Why has he got that shirt on? distracted. Why is he hiding behind the stool?
Whipping the cord around is an interesting
Whipping
one.
the cord around, a lot of but I record every set because I do a thing where I like nervously like trail off and say stuff, and then every once in a while it'll be funny and people laugh at it and I go, oh, and then I try it intentionally the next time, and if it works, it's on the joke. Mm-hmm. It's a new thing. So I would just encourage, if you give tips,
you can give
comedy,
tips. Yeah,
just like record every time you're on stage.
Yeah, my favorite nervous tick, if I'm watching someone, and you can tell they're unaware of it, are people who just keep wrapping the cord, and it's like they circle the cord. Oh, and it's like, the cord's only so long. And then eventually they notice that it's become taut and it's like pulling on where the cord's plugged in. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. And then they unwrap it and then they start wrapping it up again.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Just run it back.
And, but I've told myself, I don't think I ever want to try stand up. I think I like standing on, or like being on this side of it just as a fan and keep it that way. But the only time I ever considered doing it was when Kill Tony came to Fort Worth. Me and some friends went to watch it, and we were, drinking beforehand, and we all learned that we secretly all had written like a minute to see, just in case. So we were drunk. If you sign up, I'll sign up. Everybody signed up. And it was fun, but I realized, like, at that time he was doing the shows in LA, and his crowds were not as big as they are now. So you would probably have 100 people sign up to be on the show, and he might call 8 to 10 people. So you're thinking like a 1 in 10 chance, Well, when he came into Fort Worth, it was only like 40 or 50 people that signed up. So now all of a sudden it's like a 1 in 4 chance, and there's 4 of us at this table. So we're getting real nervous.
Oh, it's about to happen.
Yeah, and none of us got called up somehow, but like every time he reached that hand in the bucket, it's like just a fear washed over, right? And you're just like, you're grabbing each other's shoulders. You're like, oh my God, this might be it. This is going to be horrible. And then
Your first time ever doing stand-up?
It would have been in a sold-out Fort Worth venue with Tony Hinchcliffe up there ready to roast you. And so yeah, I'm very glad that never happened. But I liked having that feeling of like, oh wow, this is what these guys go through, and they even prepared. I really didn't prepare much. So, and it was going to be terrible stuff. I was going to try to make jokes about how, our dog had an issue with black people for a while. We didn't know what it was, but now we've realized it's not black people as a whole. It's just men that look like if you're fit and you're like big, like a football player looking guy or something. He's afraid of you, and there's fear there, right? And so there was like a lot of black dudes. We live here in Dallas that would fit that, and so then we realized like, okay, it's not just black people; it's really just this body type. Because then we saw it was other people built like that. So I was going to try to weave in this funny stuff about like the dog's racist and. They say like the dog takes after its owner and all this stuff. And it's just trying to tackle racism in 1 minute when you've never done comedy.
Racism?
Yeah.
Tony Hinchcliffe?
Like all the mistakes, But yeah, it was a good experience to just get that feeling of like.
The butterflies, Like you're going to throw up.
How long do you think you had that?
Probably like out of 12 years, probably 6 years. Like half. Now it's like
it's nothing.
It's not in like a cocky thing. It's just like, okay, it's fun. Even if I know it's not going to go well. Like, dude, I did a 325. It's like Hyenas does those triple features, and Ralph had just sort of hit like HBO. Like he just hit a little bit, so he's out in the world, like he's doing shows. And he just pops in. He went right before me. We were on the show, and he had a camera. He had a camera up. He's like, hey, I paid this guy. He's like, hey, when I start talking, he's telling me like, when I start talking about this thing, time me and then light me at 10 minutes or 7 minutes. Like the 7-minute thing I want to talk about. I'm filming it for something. Yeah. Like I'm recording. I was all right. So I'm back there. He does it. I'm like, time. And these people weren't giving him, like, Thursday shows are free. Like, it's Thursday. People have to work. It's 50-50 if they're going to be on. Because a crowd's never been a crowd together before. So sometimes they nail it. Fort Worth, they nail it every time. Dallas, sometimes they nail it. This time they weren't nailing it. They weren't giving him, like, anything. They didn't give the host anything. And then he went up, and I was like, oh, well, Ralph, like, is the host. He's nervous. Whoever it was, I don't even remember what it was. I wouldn't even tell you but it just wasn't. They weren't giving him anything. And then Ralph went up, and I know Ralph, and he tells some jokes I heard and didn't get anything. I was like, oh shit. And then you start getting in your head, you're just like, well, if they don't like that, they're definitely gonna like this shit, this bag of shit I have. So he gets that thing and it doesn't get what he thinks, and he goes, hey, I'm actually recording this. Can we start over? I'm gonna do that. He tells the crowd we're gonna start it over and do it again.
Oh my gosh.
So give me something else. He's all right, run it back. He's like went off, and it was kind of funny. He's like, ladies and gentlemen, Ralph. And he went up, and they were like, woo, and then he did the thing, and they didn't give it to him again. He's like, what is your, he's like, you guys suck. And then he left the stage, and he passes me as I'm going up, and he's like, you'll get him. I was like, oh no. So I like, I don't get nervous, but I'm like, when that happens, when people before me, I've seen I know that joke works every time, and it doesn't work. I was like, oh, it's you guys. You're not supposed to blame the crowd, but if that happens, I'm like, oh, it's definitely you guys' fault.
Yeah.
So as a slow and dark and not for everybody, that I'll slow down more. I'll take like 2 or 3 jokes out and slow down for the 25 minutes and be like, hey, you were mean to my friends. Like, you're in here with me now. Like, so I used to get nervous. Like, oh shit, they went. But now I'm like, no, if you have control of this, and you have control of a group of people. So yeah, I just slow down. But the thing was, like, that's just an example. Like, it doesn't faze me anymore. But Ralph, like, and this is another example. Like, comedy is who knows who's gonna hit? Who knows, like, if something's gonna work 90% of the time. He like left, got his camera stuff. He left, and like 2 days later, he's on this night show. And he's like, I think he was doing like,
he was probably trying to run that material to see if he could hit their time.
But they weren't
getting
any. They weren't giving him anything. And then he goes on the Tonight Show and becomes
God,
famous.
How
it's just
nerve-wracking
like,
though, because you're thinking like, I'll dial this in tonight, and it'll be ready for the Tonight Show, and then it's not.
Yeah, the last time you do it before you get on a plane.
Oh,
yeah,
that's brutal.
But it's just an example of like, you don't know. Yeah, they're just like, I just don't get nervous, because you think when you first do comedy and it doesn't go well, you think that like they're gonna drag, like you're never gonna work again, or they're gonna like shoot you, like pull you in the back and shoot you and charge you money for doing it. But you're like, no, if you're booked the whole show, if you don't do anything super bad, you'll be back the next show, the 3 other shows. Like, you have 4 more chances to like.
Yeah,
sometimes a show doesn't go well. So like,
well, and I think there could be a whole like Harvard study on crowds and just why some crowds laugh and why some crowds don't, and why, like, just as an audience member, it's like every crowd has a very unique feel to it. You know, it's like your weekend shows are similar. Like, people are out on the weekend, they're ready to have a good time, so it's probably going to go okay. But they still have a very, like, no crowd has ever been the same whenever I'm watching a show. There's always just a lot of unique things to each crowd.
And the Friday night late show's the wild one, because people are like, the first Friday night show, people just got off work. They're like,
they hustle to the club.
They ate maybe, and they're going to party afterwards. The Friday night late show is like, we are here.
Yeah.
One of us is going to like try to jerk the other person off. Like, yeah, they do that under the table, and they get kicked out. Or there's a woman.
I have not seen that.
Yeah,
yet.
There's a woman that gets kicked out, and then she's crying in the lobby because she feels embarrassed and like got her feelings hurt. And the husband's like, "You don't talk to my," that sort of thing. You don't talk to my. So yeah, it's they don't. And then I heard from a comic, like, if you just go and watch what people order, you can tell what kind of show it is. If they like ordering beer and wine, then they're there for like comedy. They've seen comedy before. They're just like, hey, this is something like, give me a little buzz. But if it's mixed drinks and it's a bunch, you're like, yeah, there's going to be a middle-aged white woman that goes, woo, or I don't like that. They say that. Like, I didn't care for that. They do that. Like, Fort Worth the other night, I talked about, like, there's a joke, and I said, like, if you guys been to Dollar Tree, it's $1. Like, I said something about this lotion. It's a stupid joke about lotion. And this woman goes, it's $1.25 now. Like, corrected me from the stage. And I was just like, and the person before me had just talked about, like, she dated a guy that the husband, his dad was like a grave robber, like a necrophiliac. Wow. And I was like, hey, I was in here when the comic before me talked about a guy digging up bodies and having this wave, and you sat there quietly. But the second that I miss
the 25 cents,
you were like, I gotta say something. I was like, what are you doing?
That's the line, man. That's where we draw
and then I was like, what are you doing? She's, I just tell. I was like, okay, and that was it. And then I was like, and anytime that's ever happened, like, I just say, hey, you guys see how I destroyed that heckler? Like, comedian, man,
comedian takes down heckler.
I was like, man, I destroyed you, man. I bet you're so, like, I just like, I destroyed you. Because, that happens. Like, one time I was at a show and a woman up front, I was like, so anyways, I was like talking, she was like, hey, can I tell you a joke? Like, just said that to me, and I go, no. And she said, okay. She said, okay, and I was like, did you see how I destroyed that heckler? Like, yeah, like it was like, oh, we can.
But also, what a very polite, like,
yeah.
She's like, may I tell a joke? You're like, no, okay.
I said no, like, not mad. I was just like, no, because I don't get.
But what do you think they thought? Like, you were going to go, yeah, come up. What do you got?
Well, I think people forget that it's not a TV. Like, I'm a person there.
Yeah,
like, I can hear you. If you're in the back talking, I can hear you. If you're going, I didn't like that, or like they do that. Like, I don't care for that. I can hear you. I can hear you say that. And it's just very much like, I know, it's wild.
It is wild.
It's a crowd. They've never been in a crowd together. So I'm gonna go ahead and say this. Like,
my wife and I, that's our game when we go to shows. Like when everybody's filling in, is we try to spot the heckler. Who's it going to be?
I watch the crowd. I sat in the back. I
love it. And what you were saying earlier, the mixed drinks. That's like our first. We look for mixed drinks. We look for any kind of attention-seeking clothing. And that varies. Like it may be something that's like crazy revealing, or it just might be like wild color combos,
boobs, or the pockets of the jeans are wild.
Yeah, like, it's something that just stands out where you're like, they put that on to be noticed this evening here.
Here's another one: is the selfie, the table selfie with the flash on while the show has already started. So I'm like, if you see it and they're like all the girls are like this, I'm like, yeah, they're gonna one of them is gonna be crying in the lobby because they got kicked out. Like,
yeah, we went to TK's several months ago, and I'd never seen this before. I'm looking at the stage, and to the left of the stage, there's that group of girls that you're describing who are taking selfies and stuff. Except on top of their phone, they have a ring light that's about 4 or 5 inches wide on the phone. So every time they're doing it, it's just illuminating the entire booth, like as bright, like brighter than a flash on your phone. And they did it, probably twice in everyone's set. And it was just like, the whole crowd is instantly, because they're off to that side of the stage, the whole crowd is instantly just shifting over that way and looking at that. And it's just, but oddly, nobody, I think maybe that venue is like, hey, be cool to the guest, like don't do that stuff or something. I don't know, because nobody brought it up. Like it was the elephant in the room the whole night. Some people will rush it too fast.
Mm-hmm. Some people will go talk to him too fast. Mm-hmm. Like give him one chance. Like with heckling, I don't get this is not I just don't get a lot of heckling because if you're like, hey, and they're like, and it's weird stuff. They're like, oh, I have to pay attention. So people are really quiet. But if there's something like a little rowdy, I'll turn my back to that part. If it's like over here, I'll turn my back, and like for like crowds, if you turn their back to them, the show's over for them. Even though they can hear you and see you, it's like, so if you turn your back, like the people with them will police that, or the people around them be like, hey, shut up. And if I hear that and it gets quiet, I'll come back and I was like, hey, the show's still.
Yeah.
So I don't really.
I never would have thought. It makes perfect sense, but I never would have put it together that because of the way your cadence is, that the room naturally kind of quietens down to hear what you're saying in between laughs.
The hay does it.
Yeah, and so
we're gonna be here.
That means you have like an extra level of awareness of your crowd. There's not that constant rumble that kind of happens sometimes of just stuff moving and shifting. Like you can actually hear what those people are saying very clearly through your set.
Yeah, you. I feel like, and you can do it. Any comedian, you can do it. If you're like, joke, 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 I'm doing a comedy. That almost becomes a music thing where they're like, it's just boom, boom. So I can, but if you're the way I do it, which it doesn't. It just works for me,
Mm-hmm.
and whoever else does it. Like you're just like, oh, I have to like I had to get to where even I was screwing myself up where I would like start the next thing and step on laughs.
Mm-hmm.
Like slow rolling laughs. I would start the next thing. I was like, don't do that. So now if like people are still laughing, I'm like, hey, all right, we're moving on. Stop laughing. We're moving on to the next thing. But
yeah, because I bet your jokes could swell. Like you probably have the initial people that got it and were like on board, and then it's hitting the rest of them, and now your laughs probably slow rise and fall like that.
And again, I'm not. It sounds like I'm like, oh, I'm so good at like my jokes are. I'm way different than everybody. No, that's just from watching it, watching other people and watching me. I was like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm hurting myself by not taking time to let the joke go over. And I learned I did shows with Billy D. Washington.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, have you seen him?
I haven't watched him, but I've just seen him.
He's like he does cruise ships and he's a headliner. If you're here, if you see him in like he's Texas, he's like one of the funniest people.
Mm-hmm.
But I was featuring for him, I think in Fort Worth, and every so often he'd be like, shh, 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 shh. He would do that to the crowd, and the crowd would just be quiet.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, you have control over these people. Everyone does, until you lose them. But when you go up there, they're rooting for you. And you have control, and then it's up to you to keep it. So I think the slow thing, I have control over. And if you're aware of that, it takes some of this like stage fright off.
Yeah,
I get if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And it's that control you're talking about is one of the things I'll notice about people to give me a sense of where they're at in their comedy journey.
Yeah.
You know, whether they feel like they're trying to win them over constantly, or whether or not they're up there already in control, like you're saying, you know.
Yeah, they're like trying to go in the crowd, let them come.
Yeah. And
they're supposed to be going this way.
You know, I'm going to be working with Lawrence Rosales soon, recording him.
Yeah,
and that's one of the things I love about his style is he goes in waves. You know, he'll get up there for a minute, and then it comes way down and way slow, and then he'll bring it back up for a minute, and it's like it's a yo-yo through a lot of the show, and I really like that. But he was one of the first people I noticed that where when he starts talking quieter like this, that they will hush down because they're like, what's he saying up there? And it's a fascinating. I don't even know what you call it. It's not like a phenomenon, but you don't think these big rooms are going to do that. And I recorded a live show for a band one time, and there's a little cabin around White Rock Lake that you can rent out for like birthday parties and stuff, right? So the whole idea behind the show was I want to put a band in there with no amplifiers, no PA system, and have them play like, you know, you're watching somebody in your house, but we're going to record it that way and see
house show, but like
but no PA, no nothing. Like you're going to hear it exactly as it would have been played before this stuff was really invented, because it's kind of a different feel. And we didn't know if it was going to go well. And the cabin only holds like 50 people, but it filled up. And so I was really nervous recording it that like someone's going to ruin this. Someone's going to talk. Someone's going to have a phone ring or something. And I was totally shocked. It was the exact opposite. Like we had, coolers of beer in there for people. And it's like people were waiting until a song ended to just like crack open a beer. Like they were all like far more respectful than I thought. And I was like, okay, so like if they're interested, they will show a ton of respect. And it was just a weird lesson to learn, because I just assumed like somebody's going to carry on a conversation, somebody's going to forget to turn their cell phone off, you know. And we tried to address all that at the start of it. But I was thinking like, of course I'll say it at the start, but somebody's not going to do it. And sure enough, it's like everybody like pulled out their phones and like, oh yeah, let's turn this off, you know?
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. And then I started noticing like comedy shows, like you said, that control, if you have it, they'll do it. But it's almost like there's a switch in your mind maybe where, do you think it's more of a confidence thing or?
Yeah, I don't.
Are you waiting on your material to get that good before you have that control, or is it the confidence or just a mix?
I had material before I had stage presence. I feel like I had jokes. I have like imposter syndrome about everything. Relationships, being a dad, where I work during the week, and then comedy, especially with people like see your Facebook message or you email a booker, you don't get anything. Just that it's like, hey, I'm not good at this. But the only time, and it's maybe false confidence. Like I'll stand in the back and I'll stretch all the way out because I read that like if you do that, you're making yourself as big as possible. So like it's like a psychological thing. It's like you're big. Like for like a bear, like if a bear comes, you go,
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm walking up there in my head, I'm like, the show's about to start now. It doesn't matter who's before me or after me. Like the show is starting now. Like the show is about to start. Because you can get in your head. If I was like, I did second guess, like, oh, should I be like, hey, when the people before me are like, but, and I'm not, or even the person before me is, hey, like, should I do that too? Like, no, this is who I am. This is what I do on stage. So I'm just like, hey, the show's about to get, like, I have a false confidence. And then I just know that it's going to work. And if it doesn't, you can just acknowledge it. But I've been pretty lucky where, and then tonight I'll eat shit.
Because you just said all this stuff.
Hey, come tonight. Although you won't, hey, I did a great job.
Yeah, he did amazing in the
When's
past.
this get released?
This will be a couple weeks.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. In October, I was high-fived to death. It just has this, and it says in memory on the back. I'm like, so like, you have to, comedy, you have to be like, it's a delusional thing to think like, I need to stand on stage, especially as a white, straight guy. People need to hear what I have to say about things. And then I don't even do that. I don't like political or like, I'm going to make you think. No, I think I'm a silly goose on stage. Like, I think it's supposed to be fun and silly. So there's like you have to just like psych yourself up. And I've been lucky enough to like, not really that sounds so like not really, but in my head, because I know that it's never as bad as it was or as good as it was because I record it. I'm like, man, that fucking sucked. And you listen to it and you're like, oh, they were laughing. I don't know why. Just because this person had their arms crossed, or I heard the woman go, I don't like that. These two people ruined the 200 people. They dictated it. Or you're like, that was really good. And then you listen to it, you're like, it could have been. It's always not good enough. And then when you drive home, you're like, oh, I forgot to say that one tag. And you beat yourself up about it. But no one knows what you're going to say. That's the beauty of it. That's another confidence thing, too, is like, no one knows what you're going to say. So if you say it the way you practice it, then at the very least, you did it for that amount. Like if you think about it like that, it's like no one's heard this before.
And I don't know if it's a comforting thing or not. You can tell me, but even with famous comics, excuse me, like if we went and watched Louis C.K. at the Improv after he had been shamed and lost his career. Yeah, and so a couple
years ago,
my wife and I, it's like we were very excited about seeing a comedian of that caliber in a club.
Back in the club,
because I was like, I told her, I was like, we have to go, and like we knew like friends and stuff would judge us, but it's like from a comedy standpoint, you're talking about a master, and you don't get to see.
Yeah, he's
people,
very good at stand up.
Yeah, you don't get to see people of that skill level in a club room very often anymore. Usually, they know they can sell tickets to bigger places, so a theater might be the smaller place, right? And even him, it's like, I think the only joke I really remember from that whole night was he came out and immediately addressed how his life had been ruined, and I think it made it into one of his specials. And, the joke was like, if you ask somebody to masturbate in front of him, he's like, ask him again. And then, I'll laugh, right? And then he's like, and then if they say yes again, he's like, just don't do it still. Like, and that's the only part.
A hot tip.
Yeah. And of course, got a huge laugh because all the controversy around it and him doing shows. But as big as he was, it's like, I don't know. Is there a comfort knowing that like, even after your show, even if people laughed and loved it, they rarely remember what you said. You know what I mean? Unless it's filmed on a special or something and you've watched it a few times. It's like, I love it in the moment, but I still can't like recite those jokes. Like when I'm at work the next day, on a Monday, I can't say like 50% of the set. You know what I mean?
No, there's
remember
like one joke,
a joke,
a line,
which is weird. But I would think that would make you feel more comfortable going like, even if it's horrific, nobody remembers.
Well, here's the thing: like when you feature a host, especially featuring because you have 25 or 30 minutes, they don't know you're going to be there. You're not your picture or name's not on the poster, so there's no pressure. They don't even know you. So when people come to a comedy show, the way that they announce it is very confusing because if you came to a show, to see me, which that doesn't happen, but you come to a show, it says Tyler Elliott. Yeah, all right, I've seen Netflix. When I turn on Shane Gillis or Tig Notaro, oh, it's just going to be her or him. So comedy show, you're like, oh, I can't wait to watch Tyler. And they go, hey, give it up for your headliner, Tyler Elliott. And people are like, oh, he's coming right now. And your feature act, and they go, what is feature act? I mean, they're like, why is
okay,
and then your host, so you're just like, what, there's 2 more people? I have to wait? So it's very confusing. Mm-hmm. So half the time, some people don't even know there's going to be another comedian there. There's going to be like...
It's weird to think that so many people, it's their first show. You know? But it is. And I've heard so many comics talk about the stats of like, you know, I don't know, half the room or whatever will be people who've never been to a comedy show.
It's just free tickets or something. Or somebody got dragged there.
I guess I just forget that comedy still is... it seems like comedy's been around forever, but it's really a fairly new art form. Like, if you compare how long music has been around to how long comedy has been around.
It's getting popular because it's perfectly, like, attention span.
Yeah, but music has been around for, like, 1,000 years, right?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure the Egyptians had music. Mm-hmm. But, like, stand-up comedy, the way it's done now, was really only popularized, maybe the last 100 years?
Yeah. But so the thing with not being on the poster is like you if they watch, they don't expect you there, and they're like, I really enjoyed. Sometimes they'll be like, hey, I wish you would have been last or whatever. People say that. It's very awkward. They say that about it. I mean, I wish you would have. So you're like the most you want to be is like a pleasant surprise. Mm-hmm. At the very least, you're gonna be like, oh, I didn't expect 2 other people, but they were good. They were good, and then maybe they'll remember like 1 or 2 of your jokes, but I don't think somebody remembers all your jokes.
Yeah, but does that make you feel like...
Yeah, none of this shit.
That makes you feel better,
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's such a dumb hobby. It's a dumb... like I said, it's so stupid to like... I've spent so much time doing this and driving places and...
Yeah.
And giving up time with loved ones to do it. And...
But you're still doing it.
Yeah, but when you first start, like your wife or your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, they'll come to everything, and your coworkers will, and you're dog shit. You're not good, and the thing you're on is dog shit. Mm-hmm. So then they watch dog shit, and then you get a hosting thing or feature, and you're like, hey, you're gonna come watch, and they're like, I've seen it, but it's like, no, you haven't seen it. Like, I remember when I first started, I was married, and I didn't start doing shows till like 3 years in because I didn't know you could just ask to be on shows, and people I was like, why didn't anybody get? But I didn't ask.
No one's reaching out.
Yeah, no, I thought I was offer only. No, you're not. So then Facebook people would be like, hey, or Facebook people, somebody on Facebook would be like, do you want to come do this bar show in you know, buttfuck Texas? And I'm like, yeah, awesome. And then I'd tell my wife, I'm like, hey, I'm doing this thing. She's like, how much does it pay? And I was like, oh, I don't even know if we're getting paid. I just said yes. And then you go do that, and you do that a bunch of times, or you go to the open mic like me and Brandon would go to the back door for 3 years every Thursday. We drive here. The hour and a half here, do the 4 minutes, drive back, just doing it. So, and she had come to a couple of them.
I don't want to gloss over that real quick. Like, that's something people listening really need to pay attention to, is we drove the hour and a half for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And then drove the hour and a half back.
You
know what I mean? And it's like, that's what I was saying, like my being so naive about how people craft jokes. It's like, there are people who have to drive an hour and a half to work on 4 minutes.
Yeah. And then
hope they improve or get something out of that 4 minutes. And then, you know, you might not. And it's like, that's what it takes for some people to make a set, you know? And that's the insane part of y'all's craft.
And then, so my wife knows that at the time, and that's Thursday's just Tyler and Brandon are going to the thing. So and then you're like, what do you think about this? You tell joke. So all this bullshit, dog shit. And then when I first started working at Hyenas, like Butch Lord was booking it, and he didn't even know who was like. He was just like, hey, do this thing. I just happened to hit like 3 times. Like one Wednesday, I was like opening for Christina P, like from Your Mom's House, and then that weekend was like Fortune Feimster and Pauly Shore. It was like it was like crazy.
Yeah,
but Amy was like my ex-wife. She's like she loved Your Mom's House. We'd watch it. She loved Christina, and she came to that. And it was like sold out, and it was packed, and every person stood in line to meet Christina, and she was so awesome. She's awesome. She's an awesome lady. But I could see it on my wife's face, like, oh, now I know why. Yeah, so I would, but she's like, oh, I get it. I get why you said yes to stuff. Yeah, I get why you drove, like, because it's this. Like, this is the thing. This is pretty great.
That had
like,
to be great for both of y'all.
Yeah, it's validation.
For both of y'all to see you in a room like that, getting laughs and going like, oh, because, yeah, I mean, it's...
Yeah, because you just ran something by her, and she's like, that's pretty funny. And then you said it in front of, like, 400 people, and every 400 people love it or like it. They all agree that it's okay. And then she's like, okay. So then... But I feel like some people don't get that because their wives are like, I seen it. They're like, no, you should come to watch.
Yeah.
I would just encourage people that have people that do comedy, like, do it when they get booked on something. Go watch and see why they do this. That's
a thing. I have some friends that before the pandemic, we were like making a little group where we would go to shows, just go. And it was going really well. Then we stopped it in the pandemic. I need to start it back up again. Because that was one of the things I would hear from them is, it's like I would try to vary the shows, but when you start going to a show, once a month, right, with you start seeing crossover, right? Like we might go to a show where you're going to be, the feature or the headliner on it.
Yeah.
And then the next show we go see, you're going to be on a showcase and earlier. And it's like, oh, yeah, we saw him. But they would start talking about, that thing you notice where people's jokes are getting better. Yeah, and you're watching them craft them, right? And then, because I was explaining to them, I was like, part of why I love going to the open mic is it's almost like you feel like you grow with these people, like the ones that stick with it. You watch them and you're like, I feel like I've gotten to the point now where even if somebody doesn't get a laugh, if the premise is good, I'm starting to recognize like, oh, I think I see what they're doing
and
there.
You see it, they're saying it in their voice.
Yeah, I'm not perfect at it, but I'm starting to notice like, oh, I think what they're trying to do is this, and that is funny, but it's not there. And then I'll see it, 6-8 months later, and you're like, oh my God, they reworked that, and it's funny now,
Yeah.
And that's what they were noticing is they were like, we're seeing these people progress, and there's something really fun about that. And it's almost like you feel like you're a part of their joke in a way, even though it has nothing to do with you. But it's almost like looking at like a little comedy kid and like being proud of them, like, oh, they worked that out. Yeah. That's badass now. And I think I want in the long run, I don't know how it'll work, but I think I'd like to get like a fucking school bus or something and do like a once a month where like people, like we meet somewhere, we load up and we just go to an open mic, just unannounced.
Fun, yeah.
And just like pack it out unexpectedly. Because I do wonder if just having a crowd who's like I even thought like it'd be crazy if we could get like matching t-shirts so the crowd's almost like one full thing of, to look at, and these open micers and stuff would probably blow their fucking mind. But at the same time, they have a crowd. So it's like maybe you give them a little bump of energy where it's like they're about to have the best. Yeah, they're about to have the best open mic, because you got to go open for Christina P and kind of get that validation, right?
Yeah, some people don't.
Yeah. And they're funny people.
Yeah.
But it's like maybe you just need a big pump of laughs on a smaller show that you're capable of being on to validate like, no, I got something. I got to keep working though. It's not there, but I got something. Because I do think there's probably a lot of people that
just got beaten down.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, a lot of comics are in this because they already have social issues, anxiety issues. They feel like it's like the land of misfit toys, and this is like a place. So if they're already struggling with those things and they're not getting validation ever, they're going to fall out of it fast, I would imagine, And so that's been kind of a dream. It's like if I could just show up with like 50 people with just like,
yeah, dude,
you know, whatever the group is called, like a little social group, and then just have those on the shirts so they know like, oh my God, the such and such group showed up. This is going to be a badass open mic, you know? And it's like ordering drinks. It's like I want the bartender, because on the open mics, they never staff it well. So
yeah, you want them to make money.
I want them, and I want them to almost be upset. Like, God, I can't believe they showed up. I'm fucking slammed now, you know?
It's good problem, yeah.
Good problem, right? And then just to start fostering that idea of what you were saying, it's like, go see these people as they're getting shows and as they're growing, and it's going to be worth it eventually. You know, it's almost like you're investing in them as a comic, you know?
Yeah, even if it's like, I'll never, like Ralph went, he's and you see him, like, go see them, even if someone my level or somebody like that, go see them say that joke 4 years later.
It sounds,
like, oh shit,
it might sound like a little pretentious, like it sounds like a little hipster kid or something, but it's like I will always remember watching Ralph perform some of his jokes that have now been on big stages, and he's probably filming some of them at Stomping Ground in front of 8 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always remember that 325 where he's like 2 days. Yeah. It may not have been 2 days, but it was like right before. And yeah, hopefully we're talking about him a lot. Hopefully he doesn't.
He's doing all right.
He's doing okay.
He's doing okay. He'll be fine. You know what? I do want to switch it out of comedy though, because the other thing I'm fascinated with you about is running marathons.
Oh yeah, I was your
dude.
I was your life skills. What is it? Life coach.
Can I tell you honestly? I think one of the most emotional moments in my life was getting a message from you randomly, unsolicited, after I'd done something like my first 12-mile run ever.
The long run.
Yeah, that was like one of my first long runs ever. And then you sent me a message, and it was like, good job, 12 miles is no joke or something, or 12 miles is a lot.
It ain't no joke.
Yeah. And it's like, but when you're training for that stuff, one, nobody wants to hear about you training for a marathon.
Nope.
They don't give a shit. But to someone who's never run 12 miles, it's so hard to describe how...
It's a big deal. If you haven't ran a mile, it's a big deal.
And when you finish, like we live near White Rock Lake, so I do most of my running around that lake, and it's like, when you finish, there's no one to acknowledge that you just did it. You're just like by yourself, just... Yeah.
Because there's like way fitter people out there. It's like, I did 12 miles like 5 miles ago. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Like, but I don't understand.
But at that point, because you've done what, like 6 or 8?
Done 8 marathons.
8 marathons. Yeah. When did you decide you were going to run one?
It was in Tyler. I was at TJC. I was taking classes. So they had
was that Tyler Junior College?
Tyler Junior College, yeah. So there was like I was married. This is before I had a daughter. My daughter was born in 2013. It's before comedy. I did comedy in 2011. Wow. So 2010, they had like a flyer. It was like, run the first Tyler Marathon, 10-10-10, October 10th, 2000. And I'd ran when I lived in my 20s. I would run like around Boomer Lake in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where Oklahoma State is. And it's like 5K, and that was something like I was like, I ran a mile, almost threw up, and I was like, let's try to do the whole thing. And then I would do it twice a day, like twice, 6 miles a day, and then nothing further than that. Sometimes 10, just to see if you could do it. I do a thing like, let's see what we can do. Like I do like fasting, stuff like that. Like let's see what you can do. I'm not David Goggins or whatever. So I had this brochure, and I was like, I took it home, and I showed Amy, and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to sign up for this. She goes, oh, the 5K or the half marathon? I was like, no, I'm going to do the full thing. And she's like, well, how much is that? And I was like, oh, it's 26.2. And she's like, oh, you think you can do that? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it now.
Now
like,
I am.
Hard has, I'll fucking show you. There's nothing. I hold grudges. I don't forget anybody that ever slighted me. I have a problem. Very, motivated by people doubting me, but not in a good way. Like not in a just like let's run a marathon. Yeah,
we're 100% the same person in these aspects, because initially I got interested in the marathon because Pazvar and his buddy Sonny were doing it, and they were doing the Juicy Jogger, Juicy Joggers,
chunky jogger.
And they were going to do it in 2020, but the pandemic canceled the marathon. Yeah. So when they decided to do it in 21, I realized like I had some FOMO about them potentially doing it in 2020, and I was like, I got to do it, you know?
You got to do it.
But my sister at the time, who was a runner, I will always remember this moment. There was like a couple Thanksgivings before, like it might have been like 2018 or 2019. But
the turkey trot thing? Like
no. We were just at Thanksgiving. Like, my sister made comments though, because I ran in high school. I played basketball, I played soccer, I ran track, and I remember when I ran track, I was doing the I think it's the 1800. That's 2 miles, right?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 8 laps, right? 2 miles, and I was okay. I was just okay at it. But I knew enough about running. When she started running, she was talking about how to get faster. And so I was talking to her about doing incorporating like intervals and things to get used.
Fartleks.
Yeah. I was just telling her, like, you got to get your body. It's almost like you're telling your mind, like, you're capable of going this fast. Because you'll get like in the same speed and you'll think, I'm not faster than this. And so I was telling her, I was like, just do like some wind sprints and stuff, and you'll start seeing like you're faster. And she had made some comment like, you're fat and out of shape. Like, what do you know about that? Like, why would I take advice from you kind of thing? And that like ignited a thing. And I told her, I was like, I have more like competitive nature than you. And it's like, whatever competition you want to agree to right now, I'll do it. And I will beat you at it. And because I was like, that running is all still in there. Like, I still know I can do it. And so I remember that night, She had told me what her fastest mile was, and I don't remember what it was. I want to say it was like she could run, I don't know, maybe like 7.5 minutes or something.
That's pretty fast.
She's pretty quick, and I told her, I was like, this was in November, I was like, you give me till January. I was like, I will run a mile faster than you. We can do a race in January if you want, and I will beat you. And that night I went home and ran, after Thanksgiving, I ran a mile like around the block, and I think I was at like 8.5 minutes.
Almost died.
But and that's why I told her, and I sent her the time, and I was like, I will kill myself to beat you.
I'll do that. Yeah. The second
it's
she was
totally
like,
unhealthy.
You think you want to do that?
And she was just like, calm down. We're not doing this. But that always stuck in my head, like you can't run. Like, I held on to that for like another year or two until I decided to do that marathon. And then I felt like, even though they weren't, I just made it in my mind that these people were doubting that I could ever do it. So most of the training was done with like hate, It's
like
all rage.
Mine. So I Googled like a training, beginner's marathon training. I just followed that and ran it's August. The thing's in October, so it's July and August. You run like 20 miles, and you're giving up like time with everybody.
You were doing a summertime run.
Yeah.
Wow. I've never run in the heat.
Yeah, so then the marathon came, and I think I was aiming for like, I think I did it in like 5 hours and I don't know, 5 hours 15 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And then so I did, and then I signed up for it again, but then would be progressively more out of shape and less trained, so I was heavier every time, so my time was longer, but I'd finish it. I'd be like, I'm finishing it. I think the most I did was like 6.5 hours, but I finished it. And I did the Oklahoma City one twice, and that one's more flat. And the fastest I did there was like right at 5 hours.
Okay.
Like pretty, I thought it was pretty, and I was bigger than I am now, so I'm like almost 6'5", right now I'm probably like 250 something, so I was probably like 275, something like that. So I'm definitely like I would win the weight class on a marathon, I'm just like a bigger person.
Yeah.
And I never ran in I thought it was a punishment for football, so I just trained myself to run. And now I still have it. I every once in a while I'll run to see if I still have it. I run like 2 miles, and it's still in there. Like you said, it's still in there. Whether there's weight off or there's weight, like it's still like this thing is in there where your lungs and your legs can do it.
It's like they remember it.
They remember it, and they're like, oh, I want to do this. And sometimes your legs, you're like, they want to go. And that's what you do. You learn that like when you first take off. I think we talked about this too, is like don't blow your load the first 5 miles. People do that. You watch them, and then you're like staying consistent, and you're like, I'll get you later. Like I would do that on the marathons I would run, even the big like Oklahoma. I would start towards the back. Like the Tyler one, there'd be like 400 people running. I'd be in the very back because I'm like, I want to see how many people I can like street sweep.
Yep.
Which is like mile 20, mile 21. These people maybe hadn't trained as much as me, but they would blow out. They would blow it. They would blow too fast, too furious, and then they're like laying on there, and you just go and sweep these people up. And like if you start at the back, you're like, at the end, you're like, oh, I beat, and then you're never gonna win the marathon because we're not like super skinny, but you can look to see how many people you finished before.
Yeah,
and you're like, yeah, I ran this race, and the Oklahoma City one, you like thousands of people.
Yeah.
And you're like, I beat, 1,500 people, 1,600 people at a marathon. Like,
see, I've only done the Dallas and the Fort Worth one.
They're pretty big.
I've done them 2 years in a row, and Fort Worth got me with the marketing. I probably only would have done. The only reason I ran the Fort Worth one, by the way, is because my sister got under my skin again.
So challenge you or what?
Nope. After I finished the Dallas one, I finished in like 6.5 hours. It was really long, and like they literally, when I got to the last mile, they were pulling up the course, and they're like, "Please get on the sidewalk. We're letting cars back on the street," and but they still had like the finishing line open, so you got like a medal, and they say your name,
and stuff.
Like, but they like put all the food up. There was no food left.
Yeah, you don't get no chocolate milk.
And so my sister was like, how was it? How did it? How did you get through it? How was it? And I was like, you run, and it's like every now and then if you walk, you just walk, and you just get back running again. And she's like, oh, so you walked, so you didn't run a marathon?
No, you run a marathon. You walk. You can walk because it's a different set of yeah.
But she was like, well, you finished a marathon, but you did not run a marathon.
Nah.
And so the Fort Worth one was like 2 months later, and I was like, fuck this. I signed up, and then I ran the whole one at Fort Worth.
Just slow down a little bit.
Just slow down a little bit, but I was like, I'm going. Like, again, it was just the rage of like, God,
just proving. They don't even remember saying that.
No, of course not. It's not healthy.
It's a 6. No, it's not. It's a 6 hour. It's a 6 month. Like they fucking said this, and they don't remember. Oh, did I? I didn't even remember saying that.
Oh, I just said that in passing. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it didn't pass. It hit me. It hit me right here. It's here.
Yeah, and so I did that one. I think in 5:50.
Yeah.
2 months later. So
I want to be under 6 hours.
Yeah, so that felt really good. And but that Dallas one was so eye-opening to me as just like a human and like accomplishing things, because since I was at the back of the group, right? You saw all these people who looked like they were in worse shape than you much older than you.
By cover.
Yeah, and you realize like so much of that marathon game, much like life, is just mental, just perseverance of like, how much are you going to talk yourself down?
There's always an older man that's shuffling. You pass, like on the highway, you pass him, he passes, you stop to get water, he passes, but he finishes. If you're fucking around, he'll finish before. It's like tortoise in the hare, but it does that shuffle for 6 hours.
There were two people I'll never forget in that first marathon. One was a tall guy. This tall black guy, probably 6'5", 6'6", and he walked the entire marathon, but his stride was so long as a walker.
Just power walk, mall
walker.
Yeah,
he was just cruising. And so that was around like mile probably 14 through 17. I would run and catch up with him, and then I'd be tired, so I'd be walking, but his walking pace was so much faster, he just left me behind, And so if I was running, I was going at the same speed as his walking pace.
Yeah.
So he walked an entire marathon and seemed to be like, if you just looked at him, you would think he's fatter than me, he's more unhealthy than me, but he finished faster than me, and all he did was walk.
And when you like, I've stopped running. I walk. I try to get like 10,000 steps a day. I read all this stuff like walking, running burns calories, but walking burns fat, like because cortisol. Like if you run, cortisol increases, and it sometimes keeps belly fat. Like your body saves stuff. But if you walk, there's no. So that guy's he got more out of it.
Oh yeah, and he just and it was just to your point of like the commitment. Like he had a plan. He stayed at a pace. He stuck with it.
That's the worst thing. You see everyone else, and you're like, you have to remember, it's like they weren't out there in August when I was. There was nobody out there. It's the middle of the day. Like there was nobody out there getting heat. Like your fingers are all swelled. There's no sweat. And there's like cartoon. You're like, I need to stop or eat salt. Like I would. Here's another hot tip. I stopped buying like gels and stuff. I would run with paydays. Because it's got the sugar and it's got the protein, it's got nuts, it's salty, it tastes good than those gels, and it has the sugar. Basically, that's what you're trying to do with the gels, like sugar, like trying to. So I would just have a couple paydays and like this fanny pack.
I might try that
because they don't melt either. They're hot.
Oh, you're
don't? Right up against. Well, it's just nougat, and nuts. There's no chocolate. It doesn't melt.
I got you.
So it's just kind of. I looked at it. It's like, well, they're both. You don't want to eat these every day, so this one tastes better and it has the same shit. It has the same sugars and everything that the that the $4 gel does,
Yeah.
and you can for $4 you can buy a 6-pack of king size paydays, and you're training.
I'm probably going to try that for this Dallas one this December. But
are you signed up for it?
Signed up. Well, that's what I was saying. The Fort Worth Marathon marketing got me because the first medal I got from Fort Worth,
They can, like, trade it in or something.
No, they designed it as a puzzle piece of 4. So I'm committed for 4 Fort Worth marathons because I gotta complete it.
When's the Dallas? December what?
Dallas is December. It's always around December 10th. So whatever the Sunday is around there, like I think it's December 11th this year, maybe. And then
let me look at. I might run it with you without any training.
Oh, don't do that.
Have you been training?
Yeah, I started training. What are we in? It was probably the last week of last month.
Now I'll stick with you for a little bit, and then you can go.
No, I think you might go. I'm still not very fast.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, but the other guy that I really remember, I'll never forget. Old man, he probably looked like he was in his 70s.
He's probably like 60 because running like fucking.
This guy didn't run. This guy was out there. He had a shirt on his back. It said "For Vic." So like he had a buddy or somebody who died of cancer or got sick or something, and he was doing this for Vic, whatever that meant. And he looked like he needed a cardiac workup. Like he looked like he was bad, you know. And at mile 20 at Dallas, there's this big uphill that zaps you, you know,
like a heartbreak hill. Or whatever.
Yeah. And so this was the first marathon. I was gassed. I was already done, but it's like I'm gonna finish, you know. And so I was like, I'll walk up the hill, and then at the top of the hill, I'll turn it back on. Bit,
yeah.
And this guy, he's doing that shuffle. Like, I don't even think his feet are leaving the ground. He's just sliding them, you know. And he's passing me as I'm walking, and I'm like, no big deal. As soon as I get to the top of that hill, I'm going to pass him. And, like, that guy's not going to beat me, you know. And I get to the top of the hill, and now he's put, like, a little distance, you know. And I can't catch him. I just can't catch him.
No.
He's not going fast. And that's when it dawned on me, like, yeah, he might have been out of shape, but like the 78 years or whatever he's been on this planet, like he's been hardened. Like he might have gone through like a bad job or a divorce. Like
or a widow. He's like a widow.
Yeah,
widower.
Like he's mentally tougher than I am right now. You know, and it's like no amount of training would have made me better than him at that moment. You know, he was stronger.
Yeah,
he had, and that was like the biggest eye-opening thing of like, oh my God, like you got to lie and convince yourself like I'm going to do this better next time, and you know, and just finish it. But that did help with the Fort Worth one. You know, now I knew like, I mean, sometimes you'll see me just like talking down myself during the marathon. Like, I'll remind myself that like running marathons are stupid, and like you paid money to run this, and that's such like a first world thing to do. Like other people,
pay to run outside.
Yeah.
You pay to be and then every marathon I ran, I got to the halfway point on a good pace because I was trying to do negative splits, and then it falls apart like mile 20. But I'm like, should I be done right now? I'd be done, and I get a medal. Why don't I just run half marathon? I would kill it at half marathons, but I never did it because I was like, no, it didn't. In my head, it's like it's not what I want to. I want to run. I want to be special.
Yeah,
like I want to be. Like comedy and marathons are like, oh, you do that? Like even though thousands of people have done both, but you're like, oh, you do that? Yeah, I never do that. I was like, well, I don't know.
Well, we're different.
I'm built different, and
it's such a pompous, annoying thing, and I love it. I love that I
got all my medals at home. Oh, if you want to see them, yeah.
I'm trying to talk my wife into letting me have like a display thing, like not a box, but like I think I want to put like a bar that I hang them on.
Yeah,
you know,
they have those,
and she's not letting me do it yet. But I have them hanging on the coat rack right by the front door.
I want to run. I was signed up. I want to run a 50K. I want to run an ultra marathon. 31 point. It's 31, like 50. Okay. Yeah, it's 10 5K. So like,
yeah, that's the new thing now. Like now,
it's ultra marathon.
Yeah, marathons now are like, oh yeah, everybody does this.
But yeah, you think about it, it's like, well, if I can run 26 miles, you can run 5 more miles or stumble. You can. Yeah. Your body's like, you read all that stuff. It's like marathon running is you run like, I think it's like you run the first 20 miles with your body, and the 6.2 is your mind.
Yeah,
because you do watch. You read about that. It's like people hitting the wall. Yeah, you can. I watch like people physically, like their legs are like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. Like they go, I'm done. They don't have any glycogen. Yeah, they don't have any sugar in their like glycogen, and they don't have any of that. They didn't take enough salt or Gatorade or. or gel. They're done. They have to lay there for a little bit. Yeah. So I just
see. I've never hit, and that
I
was,
hit one time. That was it.
Well, that was my realization. Is I've never ever hit a physical wall. I've only hit the mental wall of like.
On the mental, I'm weak in the.
Yeah.
Well, no, strong, but like weak. That's the weak part.
Well, now I can identify it though. The first 2 marathons, I couldn't really. I genuinely thought like the Fort Worth one. Since I was trying to run the whole thing, it's like there was literally a point where it's like out by like mile 22. When you're not a fast person, when you're at the back, the group gets so spread out that it starts to get sad fast, right?
Yeah,
like
and they're cheering. They're like,
there's no cheering out there.
Well, sometimes they're like, well, we're not going to cheer for one person.
Yes,
when that's what it should be.
It's like, I need you.
I need you because I've done.
Yeah, because like you said, the first half, that's where all the action is, right? You got all the tables, and the people cheering, you're high-fiving golden retrievers. And
all the cool signs.
Oh, it's incredible.
Kids are out there, but like if you're at the last, like they're done. They're
and
packing it up.
And it picks back up again at like mile 24
when
you're almost done.
Yeah.
But like mile 20 to 23, 24.
Yeah, those 3 or 4 miles are nothing.
And so the first...
Those are real curvy too in neighborhoods. Those are real like, where's the course at?
Yep. And at the Fort Worth one, that's when I was like, there's nobody around here. Like, you're going to have a heart attack and there won't be anyone here to revive you. Like, this is and you're in your mind, right? You're in your head.
Yeah.
And that, like, now I've identified that's what it is. And I'll just start talking shit to myself and just be like, no, you're just being a little bitch because, again, you paid to do a hard thing. Oh, wow. You live in a first world country where you can do this stuff. And, like, there's probably somebody who lost their legs who wishes they could run. And you're complaining because you paid to run and now you don't want to do it. Like, I have to start hating myself.
Man, it was... Yeah, I think I'll do another. I was trying to do like 2. I was trying to do 10. I have 8, so I was trying to do like double figures. So I may do it. The last one I did was Oklahoma City.
Is that your favorite one, the Oklahoma City one?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's what's for the bombing. So they do the bombing memorial, the Oklahoma City bombing in '95. I'm from there, so I felt like that's like a good one. The medal's really cool. It has the Hope Tree. Like if you've ever been to the museum, it's man, it's real powerful. And then before it starts, like. I can't remember how many people died, like 130. I'm butchering it.
This is the one where they bombed the front of the building, right? That had the
Timothy McVeigh, the Federal Building, the P. Murrell Federal Building, which I was in like 8th grade social studies class in Perkins, Oklahoma, like 45 minutes away, and I was sitting there and my ears popped.
Like so y'all got like a little shockwave.
Yeah, and then maybe 20 minutes later, people were rolling TVs in there. And that was our school thing for like maybe a month, just watching TV.
Yeah,
about the bombing and
because that would have been, this is pre 9/11.
95, so I was 14.
It's pre 9/11, but that would have been as big of a deal as 9/11 at that point.
It was a big deal,
especially in Oklahoma, right? Like,
well, it was a big deal because it made Oklahoma famous. Almost, we were kind of like, oh, we're famous. Like people know who we are now. Yeah, that was like that, and then Columbine was not too long. I think it was like 95, 96. I don't remember. But
do you remember what the vibe was like in like living there after that happened?
Oh, people would drive to look at it or go up there and take like rocks and stuff. Just like it was just like nothing's ever happened like this here. Yeah, it was pre 9/11, so it was like a terror.
That was the biggest thing. Yeah, it
was, and still to this day, it's the only like terrorist attack that I physically like felt.
Yeah,
like I like yeah. Yeah, like like I was sitting there, and my ears popped, and it started ringing. I was like, "What is this?" And then they came in. That isn't. I'm not making it about me, but it was just like a weird.
No, it's just your experience. Like,
and I was 14, so it's like a big deal.
Yeah, well, like I was I graduated high school in 2003, so I guess I would have been a sophomore when 9/11 happened, and and so, but like I remember being in an English class, and they were wheeling the TV in because we were just watching the news because it was that feeling of like nobody knows what's happening, nobody knows really. Because now it's weird to think like you brought a TV into the classroom to watch this unfold.
We roll the TV in to watch the OJ verdict.
Oh, really?
At school, yeah.
Wow.
And I think the Bronco chase was like it wasn't a school day. Maybe I have to look. Okay. Maybe it's like a Sunday. Otherwise, we would have been OJ watching the. Yeah. I'm way older, so like I worked at Walmart. I was like a manager of like stationery item.
You're not way older, by the way. You're 42?
42.
I'm 38. You're not way older.
Yeah, I'm way older. So I walked in to Walmart. I was like a manager of like stationery, which is like where they put Halloween shit. So it's basically like I was in charge. I walked in the morning of September 11th, like 2001, and it's like really quiet in the store. Like they weren't even playing Walmart radio. There's like a guy talking. I was like, what's going on? I went to the back, clock in, and like every employee is like just standing in the back looking at the speaker. Like it's a speaker. And it's like basically describing like the second plane. It was like I walked in between the two towers, and then we get like an email to go take like flight simulators off the shelf in the electronics because you could like recreate what was happening. You could take that plane and hit that building. So,
what?
Yeah, Walmart. That's how much Walmart. Or do they sponsor your podcast?
Yeah.
Like that's
so
how
there
much
was a flight simulator game.
Yeah, for a computer game, and that's how Walmart cares about their employees. They didn't go like, "Hey, we don't know what's going on. Like, go home and love your family." They're like, "No, can you take this off the shelf
so we don't
get sued or whatever?" So kids don't get. And then I have a joke about it because I worked there the year before when Y2K happened. So I was like the two big thing. I was like in a Walmart in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So I did like on 9/11. I went to the Scared Heights. So yeah, I'm a hero. I went to the top of the building, like lowered the flag to half mast, and kind of just set up there. So it was like on top of a Walmart during 9/11.
So wait,
yeah.
In Stillwater, Oklahoma, when 9/11 happened, you were sent up to lower the flag.
Yeah.
What a weird... That's just one of those things you don't think about, that somebody had to go up there and
somebody
do that.
had to do that, yeah.
That's very strange.
And the year before, Y2, I was a manager overnight, and our lunch was at midnight, and they wouldn't let us go to lunch because they wanted...
You're waiting to see it all happen.
They wanted to wait to see if like Skynet... no one knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
They were waiting for like Skynet or Terminator, and it was like me and these losers were going to be the last line of defense for this Walmart.
Did they have y'all do anything weird, like you unplugged all the electronics? Or
no,
something,
they're just like, hey, just watch, just watch, just stand in the because it's 24 hours.
Yeah, I know, but were you going to like call 911? Like,
I don't know. I don't know.
Just watch it,
and then nothing happened.
Just keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
How long do you sit there before you're like, I guess we're good?
Oh, we went to lunch probably like 2. It was like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Just waiting. So everyone's just kind of not working. They're just standing
For
around
2
waiting
hours.
to fight. Waiting to fight.
Waiting to see
robots.
the airplanes fall out of the sky. And
yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
oh my gosh.
and then within, that was 2000. Then a year later, like 19 months later, whatever.
Yeah.
17 months. Yeah, 9/11. I was in Walmart both times.
That's weird.
Yeah.
You'll always have those Walmart memories.
I have a lot of Walmart memories, yeah. I worked at Walmart for a little bit.
I worked at Walmart for maybe like 3 hours.
Oh.
The Walmart in Rockwall.
I beat you. I had definitely had more than 3 hours.
Well, they opened up a new Walmart in Rockwall, and I don't remember what job I had, but I wanted a different job. And I was in high school, I guess, and I was like going to get a cashier job or something. And they hired me, and then when I showed up, they're like, we don't have any cashier jobs anymore. You're a cart pusher now. And it was like middle of August, you know?
Yeah, baby.
And, I pushed carts for about 3 hours in August, and I was like, F this, And I went in there, and I was like, this is just not what I'm going to, I'm going to quit. And they're looking at me like, really? You haven't even made it one day? You're going to quit? And I was like, do you have any cashier jobs? Anything inside? And they're like, no. I was like, yeah, I got to go then. And they were like very angry about this.
I'm going to head out.
Yeah, I was like, I got to go.
They try to tell you that it's going to ruin your career. Your resume is going to look like, and then you just don't put it on there.
No, right. Yeah. And I'm in high school, like resume. Come on. We don't have any skills yet. But it was, I worked for Walmart. I can say that.
I got grief one time. I was like an adult. It's like 2017 or whatever. I worked at a school, and then you have summers off, and I was like, I'm not going back to the school. I was looking for a job in Tyler, and summer I was getting paid, but I needed something, so I worked at Chicken Express.
Yeah,
which is just if no one knows, it's just chicken strip place, and I was an adult, like 36 or whatever, like an adult. And I was there, and I would just show up, and then like when 2 days, they're like, "Look, you got to be the manager because you're here." Like that's how I worked at Brookshire's, a grocery store overnight.
Brookshire's,
and I just was stopped. I was married. I just had a job when I was going to TJC, And another thing, I was there for like 3 or 4 days, and somebody come up and they're like, "Look, you got to be the manager because no one's like showing. Like you're just like you do it. And
You're
I'm like,
here,
okay." And I was like, "No," and they're like, "We'll give you an extra $2." I was like, "Okay,
Yeah, that's worth it.
But Chicken Express, I worked there, and I was there for maybe like a week and a half or something. And then Brandon was like, "Hey, do you want to go to Arkansas?" Like this little in Cheyenne, friend of the podcast. Me and him and Cheyenne were going to go to like these venues in Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, I think, and then back maybe through Oklahoma, like 5 shows, like a little tour. And I was like, I'll go with you, and I just like didn't show back up at work, and then I got a very hateful because I was moving to Tyler. I didn't even. It was in Kilgore, like it wasn't even.
Yeah,
it was just like,
it wasn't gonna last.
No, like the money I was making from the tour, the world tour, was more than like 2 weeks of the paycheck there. So I was like, I'm
definitely doing this.
And then Kyler, something, this, white people naming their kids wild. Kylan, whatever, friend of the podcast. He sends me a very like aggressive voicemail. He's like 16 and he's talking to me. I'm 20 years old.
And he's the manager now.
And he's like, "Hey, we noticed you're not here today. Like, you need to get in here. This is gonna like affect your like work history and career and this is like from somebody that's had a job since I was like 14.
Yeah, he's 20 years younger than you.
This is not even like this is probably the 40th job ever because I'm not good. Like this is like, I'm good. I'm good. People let me be the manager. He's like, this is gonna really stain. Like it was just like it was like Batman leaving a voicemail. I was like, "You fuck, you piece of shit." And I was like, okay. And I just like never went back to Chicken Express.
I had an overnight job. I'm not going to say where it was, but I had an overnight job that it just turned into a real shitty job.
That's what they are.
Well, it was a weekend job, overnights, and it was 2 16-hour shifts back to back. And I had another job during the week. I was like, I'm just going to make extra money at this, And I put in like I was having lots of problems with other workers at this job. It just wasn't going smooth. And I went and talked to the manager. I was like, "Yeah, I just got to get off this shift. I'm not going to work this anymore. I got to do something. I think I'm just going to quit." And they were like, No. Just like, we'll get you off that shift. Why don't you just take like 2 weeks off? We'll get your shifts covered, and then we'll get you on a different shift or something if you want to do that. And I was like, well, we'll just see what happens, I guess, right? And there was a weird like 2-manager situation going on at this place. And so that was one manager. They were like super cool.
Oh, not communication.
Yeah. So the 2 weeks was over, and they were like, the not cool manager was like, "You need to come up here right now, and we need to talk." I was like, "Oh, okay." And I like, it was close. I went up there, and they're like, "That's not how you do things around here. We don't accept that 2 weeks notice. You're going to have to work an additional 2 weeks notice, or this is, we'll blackball you in this area. You won't be able to get a job, all this kind of stuff." And I was like, okay. And I was angry, but I was trying not to show it. So I was just like, "Oh, thank you so much. Like, I certainly don't want to ruin like my work history or anything. I definitely want to do that." And so, I waited until that shift was supposed to start, and then just called and was like, "Fuck you, fuck your shift, fuck this job," And it's like, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
None of this matters.
No, any company that would say something like that to you as an employee and like try to scare you and threaten you is not someone that actually has any power to like ruin anything. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter. Anyone with any real authority, real power would have handled it differently.
People are usually, if you're moving on, for people to give you grief is weird because they can certainly be upset that you're leaving, especially if you're a good employee, but they should want the best for you.
Yeah.
And they should be self-aware. It's like, this ain't the best place to work. Yeah, this ain't a fucking dream to work here.
One of my coolest...
I've had jobs like that.
Yeah, one of my coolest managers was when I waited tables at Chili's. This guy, Jody, and he had already decided like Chili's was going to be a career path for him. I love
Chili's, man.
I did sizzle service for a while, man.
Southwest.
But he decided like this was going to be a career for him. He was going to climb up the ladder. He's going to go work at corporate and do what he could do. And I decided I knew I was going to go back to school, and I needed all this time off during the week. I could only do the weekends, And I was really nervous about talking to him. I was like, fuck. And he was like a big football guy. Like he's very like broad-shouldered, tall dude, in shape. And he always wore like really nice clothes, like nicer than what you should wear for a manager at Chili's because he's trying to like be professional and get that job he wants, And so he's although he was nice, very intimidating, And I sat in his office, and he's talking to you like a football coach. He's like, "What'd you need to talk to me about today?" And so I was like, "Man, I'm doing."
He's pulled up way too.
Yeah,
your knee is between his knees.
Similar.
Your knee is like almost touching his.
Yeah,
crotch.
because the Chili's manager's office is basically a closet anyway.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah,
big.
it's not an office, But no, he was the coolest. I told him what was going on, and he's like, "Look, man," he's like, "For some people, waiting tables and stuff is a career, and for most people, it's not a career." He's like, "And you got to do what you got to do. School's really important." He's like, "When you get your schedule, you let me know. We'll figure out your shifts." And I was like, "Fuck yeah!" And it's like that's
because he knows like the 20 hours you'll be there,
Yep.
you'll kill it harder than the 40 hours. Like, oh fuck,
yeah.
They know like you're
it
like
made
almost
me-
like a specialist.
Yeah, and
Like,
it made me,
you're gonna do good.
and it made me want to work harder for him.
Yeah,
I was like,
he knows what he's doing.
yeah,
He's a
it's
good
like,
boss.
man, what a
Good
nice
manager.
guy. I And then it's
No.
like when he moved on to an area manager and we got a different boss that was a piece of shit, it was like, oh, fuck them, whatever, And then that's when I changed jobs. But it's like I would have stayed working there for longer.
Well, he's a coach, like those guys that
Yeah.
people run through brick walls for.
He was great, man. And
Dude,
it's like,
you like football?
I did when I was younger. I don't watch.
Yeah,
any of it
Dan
now.
Campbell, the coach of the Lions, he was like a former tight end there.
Oh, okay.
He's very like they're actually good now.
So he was
Like,
on the team, and now
he
he's
was
the
on
coach
it,
for
and
the
then he
team.
retired. He like played for the Saints, I think, but then he's the coach now, and
Oh,
he's
that's
very
cool.
like we're gonna like he's just his first press conference like 2 or 3 years ago, but he's like real corny, but like he's like everyone loves him. Like those guys will like kill for him.
Yeah,
And now they're turning like they're actually good. Like the Lions are good.
there's a lot to learn from that.
It's because he's that dude that you work. There's some people that are managers or leaders and managers of people and know how to deal with people.
Yeah, I know. I wish I had people skills like that. I'm way too quick to be like, oh, fuck that person. You know what I mean?
And that guy, if you, I don't know how much you like school, but I've never had like a teacher. Like this is a teacher that changed my life. Like Mrs. Fart Stick really said this one thing. But that dude, be like, if you were like, how old were you when you were doing that job?
Oh, that was probably 21, 22.
Yeah, but if you were
Yeah.
like a 16-year-old, that'd be like that kid. That guy like made it. Even now, 21, you still talk about him like that.
Yeah.
Was like he's like
It was a very impactful moment.
Yeah, he's a trusted. Like where I work during the week, it's a nonprofit. We go into schools and talk to kids, and it's all about like finding trusted adults on campus. And yeah, so I'm very, you're very aware of when adults are good with kids, like are leader. Like you're I'm very aware of like when adults are giving a shit and they try. So
yeah, and I'm getting to that age now. Like we have a 3-year-old, so I'm still a new parent, and it's like now you're starting to connect the dots of, oh, that adult. A big chunk of why they're a piece of shit is probably they never found those people ever. They were only ever around people that gave horrible advice their whole life and didn't know how to process situations. And, and it's like now you're connecting the dots of how important it is to have like support systems.
But
they
can actually teach you things like, I mean, my mom's not going to hear this, but like my dad, I have 3 younger brothers. My mom's like my dad died when I was 4. I have a heart attack on the side of the street. Hilarious. I talk about it. But my mom just worked all the time, and she's like very like such a victim mentality. Like she's wasn't the best mom. So I learned a lot at being a dad. My daughter will be 10 Wednesday, the 18th.
Wow.
The 18th. So I learned a lot from both of them. Like, hey, I never had a dad. It's very important to have a dad. Growing up in Oklahoma, where everyone had parents, like divorce rarely happened back then. So it's like very important to be a dad. So when she turned 4, I was like, oh, I've been a dad as long as my dad was. And then when she turned 8, it was a big time. I was like, oh, I doubled up. And now she's 10, so I have 8 more years before she's like an adult. So it's I learned a lot from that, just being, but you could go the other way and not learn anything from it and be like, I didn't have a dad. And we're divorced, so I could be like not involved as much.
Yeah.
But I am because I know how important not having a dad is. I know that it sucks.
Yeah, I thought before I had a kid, I thought that, having a stable home is important, but it's not like at some point, like like I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. But before I had a kid and you're kind of ignorant to it, right? You're thinking like, get over it. Like, get yourself together. Like, big deal, you know? But now that you have a kid, it's like you start to realize how much stable home life, having parents around, that stuff, it's like, it is a huge thing. And it's like, it's not even doing anything task-oriented. It's like just being around.
No,
you know?
It's very much like from remembering a kid, when... and then when I learned from my mom, it's what not to do.
Was she just like
just no patience? And four boys, we drove her insane.
4 boys and single income.
But it's just like I would encourage anybody, like if your kid is like talking about YouTube or Roblox, like fucking stop what you're doing and watch that video. Like do what they're doing. Like take interest, because it doesn't. You can take them on all the family trips and you can buy them all this shit, but they want your eyes on them. They want your eyes on their eyes. They want you to like listen.
Yeah.
That's why you do. Well, comedy, I want people to pay attention to me. Kids are no different. You never outgrow that. I want people to pay attention to me. So it's just like, yeah, whatever you're doing, whatever your kid's into, be into it.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because
even if you don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get Squishmallows and Roblox. I'll play Roblox. I have Roblox on my phone, and I play it while she plays on her iPad, and then she yells at me because I'm not doing it right. But I'm like, what? Yeah, I'm like, well, but also she's going to, what? I'd rather have, hey, my dad played Roblox. She won't say, hey, he sucked at it. She'd be like, my dad played Roblox with me, versus like, he's like, he thought it was all stupid. He didn't do it. He didn't do all that stuff. So I'm very aware of like, yeah, and having a daughter, I'll have to go here in a second.
Yeah,
but like
I was looking at the time.
Having a daughter is like, very aware of like, she's really tall for her age. She's like 5 foot. She's 10. I'm gonna be 10. She's like 5'3".
Okay,
big kid, bigger than everybody else in her class, but. I'm very aware, don't ever say you're too, like, she would ask for like Power Wheels, those big like things, and she's actually too tall for that. So I'd be like, you can't have that, you're too tall. I would never say you're too big. So I'm very aware of like, as having a daughter, you don't want, like, hey, my dad when I was 9 said I was too big. So it's very like,
and that's such a like stupid guy thing to say. Like, if you're not thinking about it, you definitely just like,
you can fuck a kid up.
You're too big for that, and you're not meaning it that way. But boom, that's
you can ask any, especially females. You can ask any female in your life. Like my grandma's and your the grandparents do that backhanded compliments. Like, should you be eating that other cookie? Like they do that shit. You can ask. You probably. I don't even know. Like even if a female wasn't big, like. There's always some. It's usually it could be another female be like, "Hey, should you have that cookie?" Yeah. They're telling a 9-year-old or 10-year-old that, and they don't think it's harmful, but you can sit with them and they can. It's like it happened yesterday, and it started a whole thing where like, "Oh, I'm not," because we already have enough of that shit like on Instagram and and like, "Hey, you're not good enough." And everybody, you're not good enough. You need this thing. You're not good enough because you don't look like that person. But that starts with like some, and I'm just like, that ain't gonna. With her, somebody's gonna say something, but it ain't gonna be me. It's not gonna start with me.
Yeah. Well, is she? I've noticed like tall kids, boys or girls. Like they do, instead of owning the height, like I'm a tall person. Yeah. This is because
they kind of shrink.
They do the slouch. You know what I'm saying?
I did a bad posture.
Did you do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is she doing that too? Or is she
no,
she's not aware yet that she's taller?
She doesn't. She knows she's taller. She loves it.
Good.
I was like, you're so much bigger than everybody else.
Yeah.
Like I have a joke like, my baby's bigger than your baby. That's the only time, and she loves that joke. She's come to shows. She's like, are you going to do the joke where my baby's bigger than, like, that's the only time I say bigger, but I would never say, you're too big, you're big, or whatever.
Right.
But it's just very much like, it's a point of pride to be like, you have no control of it. Your dad was tall. Like, I didn't have any control over it. My dad was tall. But it can be very awkward.
But you know how it is? It's like once you get used to, like now is a better time than it's ever been to be an outlier, whether it's like height or something like that, because now there's more stores and companies that sell things for that than ever, right? It's not like 50 years ago when there was only
No,
one
it's
jean
when
store.
I went to Outwoods for husky pants.
Right.
When I was a kid, because I was husky.
Yeah,
Because I've always been big and tall, and they don't the length is not long enough, so they think that big and tall Danny DeVito. Like no, there's like a guy like me that has a 40-inch waist and like a 34 length or 36 length.
So you're always wearing high waters everywhere. Yeah.
And then like, do you want my jeans to touch my shoes or you want my butt crack out? Like I need to figure out which way to pull the pants. So like, that's what I learned from my parents. It's like, just put your eyes on your kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like put your eyes on their eyes when they're talking.
My son does this thing where like he'll just come and just randomly just be like, "Come play in my room," and I'm like, "Okay," and we go in there, and all I'm doing is sitting there while he's playing with something. Like I'd be like, "Do you want me to play with that?" He's like, "No, I'm playing with this. Let me show you this. Let me do that."
Yeah,
and it's like to your point, it's like that's that moment. It's like I just need to be sitting in the room right there, and I try to make an effort to like put the phone in the other room. Don't be like on the phone.
Yeah, I'm bad about it, but like try. Yeah.
But and then that's when I start getting like more sappy, and you're like, all those kids who don't have that person to come play in their room, like and then like I said, you start connecting the dots of like, oh, these might have been the moments that made that person like this was the beginning of them being a worse person, if they couldn't turn that around somehow.
That's all it is. Yeah. Generosity. It's like the most valuable thing we have is time. So if you give it to somebody else, it's a big deal, and it's a big deal to kids. They know they can. Kids are smarter than you give credit. They start making core memories pretty quickly. So go get on the floor.
Yeah,
you ain't above that.
Yeah,
yeah. So
dude, let's end it on that. I know you got to get out of here. Where's the best place if you have shows and stuff that people can find out?
Tyler Elliott Comedy on Instagram. And Elliott's 2 L's 2 T's, like Zeke Elliott.
Mm-hmm. All right,
2 L's 2 T's, 1 I 1 O 1 E.
Perfect, dude. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah,
and,
thanks for
good luck
having
at your
me.
show tonight, man.
Thank you.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.